Sewer District for an alternative rate adjustment. My name is Kent Chandler. I'm chairman of the Kentucky Public Service Commission and will be presiding over the hearing today. With me and joining me on the stand here is Commissioner Mary Pat Regan. I'd ask that if you have cell phones that you please turn them to silent or turn them off. At this time, we'll have an entry of appearance of counsel for the applicant, Southern Water and Sewer District.
Yes, Your Honor. Stephen Bailey for Southern Water.
All right, thank you. And for commission staff.
Tina Frederick and Kurt Krothofer for commission staff.
Okay, and it's my understanding that notice of this hearing was filed into the record last week, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And we've already ruled on that, so are there any outstanding issues to take up this morning, any motions?
No, Your Honor.
There are none.
Okay, great. Nobody, pursuant to the instructions that were on our website, nobody has filed or indicated to the commission they would like to provide public comments remotely this morning. Just ask if there's anybody not affiliated with the utility that would like to provide public comments this morning. This is your opportunity. So I'll just take a second. I don't see anybody coming forward. All right. Just remind folks, anybody that's watching this live remotely or watches this after the fact prior to the case being submitted, the public comments can be provided anytime, a number of ways in a case. The first way is through our website at psc.ky.gov. The second way is by email. You can send your comments to psc.comment@ky.gov or written. You can mail them to the Public Service Commission. You mail them to 211 Sower, S-O-W-E-R, Boulevard, Frankfort, Kentucky, 40601. We ask that regardless of the form that you provide your public comment, that you include your name and your address and case number. And just a reminder, the case number in this matter is 2022-00099. So, given that there is no one that indicated they'd like to provide a public comment, I guess we'll just go ahead and move on to the presentation of evidence. So, Mr. Bailey, do you have a particular order in which you intend to call your witnesses this morning?
Yes, Your Honor. We would ask that Mr. Jeff Prater, chairman of Southern, be called first.
Okay. Anything after that?
No, I don't have any suggestions. It doesn't matter to me, Your Honor.
Okay. So let's take Mr. Prater first, Mr. Daniels second.
Okay.
Get through the board members, and then we'll go from there. We'll go the order that I have them just written down here. We'll go Jeff Prater, Donnie Daniels, Ms. Burke, Mr. Reed, and Mr. Conley. How about that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And if you'd like to call them out of order, that's fine. Just let me know, but that would be helpful. Okay. All right, Mr. Bailey, you can call your first witness.
I call Mr. Prater.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, please state your name and business address for the record.
Jeff Prater, Chairman, Southern Water and Sewer District at McDowell, Kentucky.
And your address?
Uh,
You
What
can
is
use whatever address you'd like, where we can find you at work, what the
Okay.
water district's address is, or your home address.
I'll give my work address is 504 11th Street at Paintsville, Kentucky, 41240.
Mr. Bailey, you may ask.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you state your position with Southern Water?
Chairman, current chairman of the board.
And when did you come into that position?
February of 2019.
Can you just give us a brief background on how you came into that position?
Yeah, Southern Water was, I would use the word in crisis. They had been to the PSC asking for a rate increase. was denied by the commission. All 5 of the commissioners had resigned from Southern Water. I was one of the group of new commissioners that were all appointed that came in 2019, trying to address some of the long-term problems. And we have worked since there's 4 of the original commissioners and another commissioner. We've worked quite a bit over the years trying to get the district turned around.
Do you feel like the financial condition of the district has improved since you first arrived at this position?
Oh, yes. I mean, we came to the commission after the new board was appointed to get a rate increase because we were basically bankrupt and we had to borrow money from the county government just to make the debt payments and payroll. So today we're here to talk about, whether or not that the commission would ask us to, or issue an order for us to raise rates when we are able to operate, on the current funding level.
And what is Southern's position today regarding the rate case?
Well, the board voted in March of this year, I believe, when we filed the filing, which was in reference to an order from the commission on an earlier case. We felt that the operational changes we had made would allow an increase in revenue over this year and the next year. So the board had voted and filed asking not to increase the current rates at Southern Water. And I might add the current volumetric rate. There's still a fixed charge rate in our tariff, which is obsolete because all the meters have been changed.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Frederick?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Prater.
Good morning.
I'm going to jump directly into some of those operational changes that you talked about. And I'm going to ask you some specific questions about some of the specific things that Southern included in its application.
Yes.
It listed out some of the things that have occurred in the last few years. Let's talk about the new tank at Mink Branch. You familiar with that?
Yes,
Okay. Now, the application indicates that that was funded with a grant of $740,000. Is that correct?
that's correct.
What was the source of that grant funding?
I believe it was the Department of Local Governments.
Who would know for sure?
A grant was administered through the Big Sandy Area Development District. But I thought the funding source was Department of Local Governments. So,
But who would actually know? Who would have, instead of looking,
Eric Ratliff at the Big Sandy Area Development District would be able to answer that question.
There's no one with Southern that's here today to testify that can answer that question?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do you know if the grant funds covered the entire cost of replacing that tank?
Yes, ma'am, it did.
Were there additional excess funds after the cost of the tank was paid for?
To the best of my recollection, Southern had to pay either $4,000 or $7,000 of district funds in addition to the grant money.
Okay, so the grant money didn't quite cover the entire cost.
That's correct. There
Okay.
was a small payment.
All right. Now, what quantifiable operational savings can Southern attribute to the completion of the Mink Branch tank project?
The old tank that was replaced had quite a bit of water loss. It leaked constantly, so there would be savings in a reduced water loss. Also, they expected to have some reduced maintenance issues because of the old tank and the old line. So they expected to save money in water loss and pumping cost.
When was the new tank installed and that project completed?
I believe it was December of 2020 or January of 2021.
And has the district calculated any reduction in their water loss since that time?
To my knowledge, there is no exact or no estimate of the exact amount of operational savings from that tank being installed.
Can I just
to get the brass tacks here for a second, the test year on this rate case is 2021, is that right?
Yes.
So the test year on this rate case is 2021. Is this tank one of the proposals that you all put forward as being the basis that you don't need a rate case because of found efficiencies? Or you don't need a rate increase because of efficiencies you found?
Well, I would characterize it as that all of the things that we did, this just being one specific example, not an enormous amount of money, but one specific example of a lot of the things that we have done to reduce cost or to increase efficiencies.
Right, I guess what I'm asking is, if this was put in December of 20 or January of 21, isn't whatever efficiencies and whatever reduction of water loss that's related to this already caught up in the data that's provided as
Yes, I
a basis in
understand
the
what,
case?
yes, whatever efficiencies would have been, obtained by that tank would be in the 2021 test year.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Chairman. Let's move on to the Estill Bottom line relocation project that you also mentioned in your application as an operational change in efficiency. The application indicates that that was funded with a $258,000 grant. What was the source of those grant funds?
Again, I would have to defer that to Eric Ratliff at the
Okay.
Big Sandy ad.
That's fine. Do you know if the grant funds covered the entire cost of the project?
Yes, they did.
Were there any funds remaining after the Estill Bottom relocation was completed?
No.
Do you know if any customer meters were replaced during the Estill Bottom relocation project?
The best of my recollection, all of those meters had already been replaced when the Estill Bottom project was done, but a lot of the service lines were replaced.
Okay, so no meters, just service lines.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay. And when was the Estill Bottom project completed?
I believe it was completed in 2000, early 2021, or late 2020. But the operational efficiencies would be in the test year of that line replacement.
Okay. And you also cited a public information campaign that Southern has recently embarked upon. I just want to ask you a couple questions about that.
Yes.
Since the start of this campaign, has Southern received any reports of water theft?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Not from the public information campaign, but Mr. Conley has conveyed to me in a few cases where that individuals have approached some of Southern's service personnel, and so there has been some people come in or reported to water company personnel about theft. But there has been no one, to my knowledge, on the public information campaign that's reported through that portal.
Okay, thank you. I understand the distinction, but regardless of however it was reported, how does Southern deal with the situation when a report of water theft is given to the district?
Mr. Conley would investigate that, and I'd be glad to try to answer it, but I think that question could be answered better by Mr. Conley.
Okay, thank you. We'll ask him that. Now, in your response to the staff report, Southern indicated that they expected to receive a $210,000 reduction in debt service by the year 2024. Other than that estimate of a reduction in debt service that you expect to occur in those years, is there any other quantifiable savings that the district expects in its operational cost between now and 2024?
No, reducing the bond payments and the debt payments and principal and interest is the biggest future savings that the district has. We felt like that operationally we could save a lot of money. Of course, inflationary pressures have been a little worse than what we thought they would be as well. But the reduction in debt would be the biggest thing going forward that Southern could have to reduce cost.
Okay, and should Southern file, an alternative rate, application in 2024, would Southern anticipate filing a, cost of service study with that application?
Oh, yes, certainly.
And should the commission's final order in this proceeding ultimately order a rate increase at this time, does Southern still anticipate filing another rate case in 2024?
Well, if the commission orders a rate increase in this case, I think we should look at, we would have to look at our financial metrics in 2024. You know, I don't know that we would automatically file one. It would depend on the financial condition of the district. And so if we had a rate increase this year, you know, we would have to look at the financial debt service coverage metrics at that time to make that determination, unless we're under an order to file an ARF.
Okay, that's fair enough. I want to draw your attention to something that's in the record, and I believe your counsel has prepared for you a copy of the case record in this case, and also in commission case number 2020-00121. That's available for you there at the witness stand, along with the annual reports that Southern District has filed for the years 2017 through 2021. So at this time, I'd like to draw your attention to Southern's response to staff's first request for information, item number 3A. There in your notebook, you should have a loan agreement, 2022-000099.
Okay, and it's in the first response to,
First response to commission staff's request. Item 3A. There is an attachment.
oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm familiar with the document that you're referencing, if you want to.
Okay, then I will finish my question and maybe your counsel can help you find the document in the record. I'm referring to a loan document. It's loan number 38626.
She said it was in the first response, so it should be close to the top here, shouldn't it?
It's dated November the 17th, 2017.
What date? Do you know the date that was entered, the date of request? I've got it.
The date of the first request, hang on.
Yes.
I will look it up in the record. Is that how you catalog
I
loans?
did.
Yeah, if you
That's
could-
7/29 date.
Yeah, if I could use my tablet, I can find it, because I know it in order from right off of. Would it be permissible for me to get my tablet, because I think I can find it faster through the commission website?
That's up to the chairman.
That's fine.
Yeah, it was filed on 6/10/22.
I apologize. Oh, right here it is.
Okay.
6/10/22, ledger. I apologize. Let me look on my tablet, because I know that I've reviewed the information you're talking about right off the website.
It's a promissory note with a principal amount of $125,984.
Yes, and I remember,
Okay. So
I
that,
remember the document.
we'll just cut to the chase here. The loan date on this is 11/17/2017, which
Yes.
of course predates your time on the commission.
Yes.
Okay. But from the time that you came on to Southern's Board of Commissioners in 2019, were you aware of the fact that this loan had a balloon payment that was due in 2019 of $89,000, $562.66?
Yes,
What was the plan that Southern had for repaying that balloon payment?
it was explained to us that, under the statute, that the district was allowed to borrow short-term money, and that the statute, which is in the information that you had, put out, in the, stuff, that the Kentucky Revised Statutes allowed the district to borrow money for, up to 2 years short-term borrowing, and that loan could be closed and borrowed again as long as the loan did not exceed 6 years in total. We were told that that was a common practice among a lot of water districts to borrow money to purchase like routine items such as a truck in this. And I think in this case, the former board and chairman had bought 5 trucks for that loan.
That is what what Southern's response to another data request indicated. Wanted to ask you, to the best of your knowledge, is Southern still in possession of those 5 trucks?
Yes, yes,
Okay, are they used in the operation of the water district today?
yes.
Okay. Now, this particular loan looks like it was renewed, November the 25th of 2019, is that correct?
That would be correct.
And who signed that loan agreement?
I believe I did. I know that it was voted on, and I'm sure that I signed that loan agreement.
And when you signed that loan agreement, did you seek commission approval for that loan agreement?
No, because we, as I said, we thought that fell within the statute that I was referring to, that allowed us to redo that loan up to 2 times as long as it was less than 6 years.
Okay. Are you aware of the fact that a long-term debt has appeared on Southern's annual report every year since 2017, with a particular debt that with an initiating date of 11/17/17 and a maturity date of 11/17/2023?
No, I wasn't aware of that. We did not view that as a long-term loan because it was redone, and I felt like, and I'm from my standpoint, I felt like we were complying with that specific statute on that loan. I do believe the loan maturity date, I think it went 3 days beyond the 6 years though, which was an accident that I didn't realize had happened.
Okay. Are the payments on this loan current?
Yes, yes.
When is it due to be paid off? Do you know when you'll make the last payment?
I believe, and I'm going from memory, I believe the last payment would be in November of 2023. I believe specifically it was November 20th of 2023, and the loan originated on November 17th of 2019. 2017, I apologize.
Okay.
So can I have a clarifying question? It was entered into in 17, it was redone in 19, and it was redone again in 21. Is that what you're
Yes, sir.
saying?
Yes, sir.
You didn't redo it for 6 years. You redid it.
Every 2 years. And,
Well, so-
and we,
So let me ask this, just because of the way things work. If it's over 6 years between the day it originated and the day it ended, doesn't it have to, by just fact, any of those 2-year periods have to be longer than 2 years? Is that right?
well, it was my understanding that that they had to be 2 years or less each period, and the total could not exceed 6 years.
Right, but you said the total does exceed 6 years,
Yes, that was,
but doesn't that mean, I mean, you can't have 3 loans of 2 years each and then all of a sudden have, that would say, so 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. But you're saying it's gonna be more than 6, which means that not all 3 of those periods was 2 years. Is that fair?
that's fair, yeah.
One of those 2-year periods, or maybe all 3, that maybe they were all, you know, it's 6 years and 3 days, and every year was an extra day. But my issue isn't that it was 1 day off or 3 days off. But where is this conversation occurring? Let me ask it in this context. Is this something that you all are having these conversations in board meetings, or is this you're having the conversation with Mr. Bailey, or you're having the conversation with management, and it's your all's understanding of what the law is?
My recollection is that both times, both in 2019 and 2021, we discussed it as a board, and that the Kentucky statutes allowed that. I believe I spoke to Mr. Alan Valines at Kentucky Rural Water. I believe he is the person that informed me that that was I don't know that he used the words, but he inferred that it was a common practice among water districts, that there was an allowance for that.
Well, and the statute says exactly what the statute says. I'm not, it speaks for itself.
Yes.
But Mr. Valines is not an attorney, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for this witness.
Commissioner Regan?
I don't.
So, what's your day job, Mr. Prater?
I'm a vice president of operations for Big Sandy Rural Electric Cooperative,
You've been with Big Sandy for a while, right?
34 years.
You, as much as anybody, is as hands-on as much as anybody there with infrastructure and actual physical assets. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
So, you, again, probably as much as anybody there, has a better appreciation or has a great appreciation for the useful life of those assets. Would you agree?
Yes.
And when you all are planning your system and maintaining your system, is that the general basis for your all's decisions? How long you think something can safely or reasonably still provide service?
Yes, sir. The age of the infrastructure, plus the reliability, because there are certain geographical spots or areas that will have more problems than others, and so we use both. You have to use the reliability aspect, what areas are failing the most, and what the general age of the infrastructure is.
And so age and then condition of the assets, and those aren't always correlated. Would you agree that sometimes you have some assets that look like they're brand new and they're 30 years old, then you have some that are 30 years old or 10 years old that look like they've been in service for ages? How they're
Yes.
used, how they're maintained, is that fair enough?
Yes, we have some 1950 assets that perform better on reliability than some 1960 or 70 assets, so.
It's
we-
the proverbial, they don't make them like they used to.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I would say I would concur with that.
Yeah. Planned obsolescence, I hear that sometimes that, especially electrical or electromechanical
Yes.
pieces, they're, yeah, just about the time the warranty's up is when they
Yes.
stop working well. So, you have a good understanding at Big Sandy, or we'll just say it's your day job, of how long things are gonna last, when they're gonna need to be maintained, and when they're gonna need to be replaced, right?
Yes, sir.
And as a general matter, especially for smaller components, maintaining them, whatever you have to do to maintain them, is not necessarily capitalized. Would you agree that sometimes it's just an operating expense to fix something?
Yes, I mean, typically in my day job, anytime you repair broken things, it's a maintenance expense. We have a separate budget for capital expenditures that would improve the system.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk to you about, because that's the operational side that you're dealing with every day with the physical assets. But I would assume you're providing routine, or probably it feels like to them, never-ending input to the financial side of the business about how long things are lasting, what kind of repairs you're gonna have to do next year, or you're gonna have to do next week to make sure things are maintained. And then that there may be certain assets that it just doesn't seem to make sense to continue putting expenses in to maintain them. They need to be replaced. We need a new investment here. We need new conductoring, whatever it may be, new transformers. You're working with the other side of the other side of the house on the financial side. Is that fair?
Yes, we actually are required, as a nonprofit electorate, we borrow money from the rural utility services. So we have to develop, or a component of that, we always develop a 4-year construction work plan for capital investment. So we're trying to look, actually more than 4 years down the road, but a minimum of 4 years down the road for needed investment and replacement, or upgrades, as you would refer to.
Yeah, and that's what I want to get to. Your all's construction work plan is specific with some things and generic with others, because at 4 years out, it's hard to be,
Yes.
explicitly certain. But you all file those and get those approved by RUS, and then you can have them amended by RUS. Is that?
That's
accurate?
correct.
And
we
then you will
also-
file those with the commission staff to get their input as to whether something needs a certificate to do. But for the most part, it's replacements of current assets that don't require a CPC in. Is that your understanding?
That's true. The last one we did, the commission staff issued I think an opinion that it was ordinary and customary work.
Yeah.
And so it didn't need a CPNN.
So those construction work plans are, I assume, a painstaking process to go through between your folks, other management, and other management, including the financial side of the organization. The reason I ask all of this is because you have a significant amount of experience on that front, right? 34 years, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
34 years at the utility. Do you all exclusively, let me ask it this way. Do you all, when you're talking about the life of assets, the condition of assets, whether it's specific assets that are depreciated on their own, or accounts, right? So like poles all get thrown in the same account. How important is it for you all to be accurate with the life of those assets and the timing that you all depreciate them and expect them to last ahead of replacement? I mean, let me ask it this way. In your experience, is it beneficial to the utility to say that assets are going to last 50 years and depreciate them over 30 years so that you only ever recover 30 years of the depreciation expense? Is that beneficial? Is that sustainable long-term?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question. I never thought of it in the way you ask it. So, we do have, I believe we depreciate poles and conductors at 35 years, 30 or 35 years. Some of those assets have a useful life well beyond that, and some get replaced before that. I would imagine that the average works out pretty well.
So
But-
what kind of meters do you all have?
We have a power line carrier meter that sends a signal back through the power line to
The
the.
Turtle 2 PLC?
Well, it's a TWAC system.
Okay.
It's similar to the Turtle, but it's not the Turtle system.
So, before you had those, did you just have ordinary electromechanical meters?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Which ones last longer, the electromechanical meters or your
Oh, the
PLC?
electromechanical by far.
They'll last 30, 40, 50 years as long
Yes.
as you're testing them right? Does it make sense to depreciate the TWAC meters over the same life as you used to depreciate the electromechanical meters?
No, our experience is the life of the electronic meters are about 12 to 15 years. We're in a process now. We started 5 years ago. We have 12,000 some meters. We started 5 years ago in an attempt to replace 8 or 9,000 over a 5-year period because the age of them had reached 10 to 12 years, and that seems to be the useful life.
The reason I ask all this about your day job is that, we don't get a lot of complaints about your day job utility, right? We don't get a lot of service complaints. You seem to, as a general matter, it's just my characterization, be doing a pretty good job. Would you agree that you all depend on both the loans from RUS that they give you under your construction work plan and depreciation to fund those necessary investments in your system?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you've got the case in front of us. Your all's expert said that your revenue requirement would require about an 8% increase in rates. Is that your memory, Mr. Valon?
Yes, sir.
And then the commission staff's is a little higher than that, maybe 8.5%, 9%. That represents a increase over current rates of between, I think, $275,000 or $300,000 a year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So your all's annual depreciation expense is $900,000. So would you agree that not increasing rates or assuming 2021 laid over 2022 or, going forward, you don't increase your rates, you're going to miss out on about a third of your depreciation expense?
Yes, sir. I would make one big distinction between the electric side and the water side. At the water district, we have been very successful in getting grant monies. And so the Mick Branch tank that she spoke of, the Estill Bottom project, those two projects alone was $1 million of investment into the system. And we have a $1.5 million project that's in construction phase at Lackey to Wayland. We have a $1.9 million grant that we hope would start sometime next year. That the one key difference, the two key differences I would say is the water district has grant revenue that is allowing us to replace aged infrastructure that the electric company can't get, so we're using RUS loan funding. Also, the meter surcharge is generating the revenue to pay for all of those meters being replaced, which benefited the district greatly. So that is system improvement that I would think is a difference that that Southern Water District shouldn't need as much recovery of the depreciation rate from the customers as the electric company would.
Why not?
Because there's substantial investment being made with grant money.
What's the difference between grant money? What's the difference in terms of having enough money to recover depreciation for future replacements of facilities, or at all between grant money and loan money?
Okay. Well, and I can give you my perspective. So the Estill Bottom project and the Mink Branch tank was about $1 million. That $1 million of investment that came from grant monies goes on our books and is depreciated over 40 years or 60 years, whatever that number is. I think it's 60 years for a line. So that depreciation is a non-cash on our books, but our customers didn't pay for that infrastructure improvement.
Right, but let's just take an electric utility or let's take, if you all had to borrow the money,
Yes.
right? The debt service is separately recovered, correct?
Well, yes, the debt payment, because the depreciation is a non-cash,
Right.
just
But
an accounting issue.
So the difference between contributed property, a grant, and a loan is that with the loan, you also have to recover debt service to pay for that loan, right?
That's correct.
So it's already cheaper in rates. But what you're saying is it should be doubly cheaper in that there is no debt service and we should also not recover depreciation on grants.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you're not recovering depreciation on the grants to necessarily you're not recovering depreciation on loans necessarily to repay the loan. Would you agree?
I'm not sure I followed the.
Well, so I'll say it this way. Let me ask it this way. How long did these loans, these grants take for you all to get? So you all identify the need for the facilities and then you get the grants. What are we talking about here? 2 months, 30 days, 6 years?
It varies. It typically, so the Lackey to Wayland project, the grant was announced in late 2019, and they just started laying pipe a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and but even before 2019, when was the,
It was identified by the former administration at the Water District, so probably a year or two before that.
yeah, so we'll just call it 4 or 5 years between identifying the need and getting the grant. That's a problem, right? I mean, it's great to get free money.
Yes.
But it's also pretty terrible operationally to have to go 3, 4, 5 years between identifying a need to upgrade the system and having to sit around and wait for a grant. Would you agree?
Yes, sir, I would.
And if you all are in a position to where getting loans may not be the easiest thing in the world, right? Or it may be particularly expensive, and grants take a while, would you agree that depreciation is a source of funding for the use of the utility to reinvest in its system?
Well, if I could, I'd like to answer that with a statement. I think the fundamental mechanism for any utility to upgrade its infrastructure is going to be through that depreciation, recovery in the rates. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does. I think that's a fair statement, and it probably gets to the point where you acknowledge the importance of depreciation. What I don't understand is, we all know that that Southern did not recover depreciation appropriately for probably the existence of the utility. I think that's probably a fair. I would be surprised that if in any given year, the revenue of the utility fully covered the depreciation expense. I'd be surprised. I'm not, but to be perfectly frank, I'd be surprised if any of our water districts had a year in which their rates fully covered depreciation expense. There are few and far between. Some of the folks get real lucky with economic development, or the utility in Oldham County has a lot of growth, and I mean, they haven't had a rate case, I think, in my lifetime. So
Yeah.
Those kind of things are nice,
Yeah.
right? But that's few and far between.
Yes.
It's few and far between in electric utilities for somebody to fully recover rates in any given year,
Yeah.
or fully recover depreciation expense. I think my concern is not that a utility wouldn't recover $200,000 or $300,000, a third of its depreciation expense in 1 year, right? My concern is that you all didn't recover $300,000 or $275,000 of depreciation expense last year, right? And then probably $200,000 to $300,000 the year before that.
Possibly. We were on the fixed rate, and so financially, I think the district did better on the fixed rate charge that we had until all the meters were changed out. But I think your statement would be very accurate from the time that we started the current volumetric billing until now. I don't think we've ever recovered full depreciation in our rates.
Right. And so that's where my concern and curiosity comes from, right? Because it's very easy to say, inflation being what it is, all these other costs, please don't raise the rates for next year, consumers may struggle. The reality, though, is that the utility has been struggling for 20 years, and you all have not been able to recover the cost that you need to reinvest in your system, and you're depending on grants to make the minimum investments that you need to, not necessarily probably the preferable ones. So how much longer can you all last missing out on a third of your all's depreciation expense a year?
I really don't have an answer to that. It's, there is a lot of what you say. Water districts having boards of people that live in the community, there is a lot of sensitivity toward the customer base, and the customers we serve is obviously a high poverty area. And so there is always going to be, and I think it's designed in the statutes that each district have local commissioners. So there is always going to be that balancing act that the district's going to be trying to do, is to keep rates as low as we can for our customer base, but having enough money to adequately invest in the infrastructure.
Yeah. And do you think that the utility up to this point, that Southern has adequately invested in its utility over the last 10 or 15 years? And you've lived there.
No, sir.
So, let me also ask about something, you have these things in life that you think you've seen or you think you've heard, but you're not quite sure whether it actually exists or whether you've manifested it in your mind. That's my experience. I'm probably a little crazier than most people. But I vividly remember a conversation in either a hearing or somewhere about you all having a water line that was installed years ago and that you've subsequently found out is not, I'm going to say this delicately, was not the correct type of material when it was put into place. Do you know what I'm referring to?
I may not know of the exact one that you remember, but Mr. Conley and Mr. Potter have conveyed to me that there's one area at Melvin, I think, that the original pipe installed years ago is not a quality or type that should have been installed. Therefore, that particular area has the line splits or break splits and causes a lot of extra maintenance work.
It's not water line. Is that your understanding?
I don't remember them saying it wasn't water line. I remember saying it wasn't the proper type of
Okay.
pipe.
Right. And you think that Mr. Conley can speak more to it?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you know whether or not this is any of the area in which the grants that have been announced will address?
No, sir, I do not know. No, I'm sorry. There is no current grants that would address that. We do have a grant that we're seeking funding for that would replace some of the areas that Mr. Conley and Mr. Potter have identified as having, issues with the line. So we are seeking a current grant, but the line I'm referencing is not a part of any current grant that we're seeking or current grant that we received.
Do you know how much approximately that grant amount, what you are seeking is?
I believe it's $2.2 million.
Okay. Do you have any efficiencies that you're aware of that you all believe argue against raising the rates now that are not accounted for in the test year of the case?
No, sir. Inflation and employee retention has become such big issues this year. I couldn't speak to a specific operational issue that we would have going forward that's going to make a huge difference.
So let me ask, based off the 2021 numbers, you all did not, you all on a, not on a cash basis, but on a net income basis, did not fully fund depreciation expense last year, correct?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
If you all don't raise your rates, is your expectation that you will fund depreciation and expense even less in 2022?
I believe it's in the testimony, or it's in the testimony submitted. I believe Mr. Reed's end of August trial run balance shows that we would have a net of about $108,000. Based on those metrics, there's no way that we could take in full depreciation this year.
Yeah. And then, do you think your expenses will rise or lower in 2023?
From March of this year, when this first was submitted until now, inflation has been, inflationary pressures have grown exponentially, in my opinion. The availability of products and, I mean, basically everything that the water district buys, and it utilizes has gone up in cost. And then same thing on the electric side. Everything has gone up substantially this year, which has created a real issue for all utilities, in my opinion.
Okay. Mr. Bailey, do you have any redirect of the witness?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Bailey, are you gonna request, since you put Mr. Prater on first, that he be excused for the remainder of the hearing, or you just wanted to ask him to go first?
I just wanted him to go first, Your Honor. I think he
Okay.
rode with some of the other individuals, so he doesn't need to leave.
All right, thank you, Mr. Prater.
Is that correct, Jeff? You don't need to leave, do you? You don't need to leave, do you?
No. I'll be here until the end.
Mr. Bailey, you can call your next witness.
Your Honor, I call Mr. Daniels.
Mr. Bailey, you asked, I think you asked for Mr. Daniels to be a witness today, is that right? So I'll let you
Yes, we
conduct some
requested that.
original direct,
Okay.
before you tender cross-examination. So, you mind to raise your right hand?
Yes, sir.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please have a seat. State your name and address for the record.
Donald Daniels II, 23649 Kentucky Route 122, Melvin, Kentucky, 41650.
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Daniels, can you state your position with Southern Water?
I'm a board member of Southern Water since 2019.
And have you resided in the Southern service area since Southern came about?
I've been there since Southern existed. First part, when Southern existed, they did not include my area of the county. Then 9 months later, Southern extended their lines up to my part of the county, and I've been on it ever since.
Do you feel that you have personal knowledge of the service area and the residents we service?
I do. I feel like I've gained more since I've become a board member, but also before that, I'd also been involved with some of the projects that Southern had done in the past, and I think I got a good grasp before their service lines and everything is.
Can you state your position on this rate case?
Well, my position is, and it's more of a personal position than it is to a Jeff's more polished than I am. But we've been through so much in our county in the last year. And with that being said, we've had 3 major floods, FEMA floods. We've had a police shooting that ended tragically. And, we went through the COVID-19 since we've come in. And, there's just been so much happened to our customers. We asked our customers back in 2019 to come in and have a rate increase and a surcharge in order to get this water district back up on its feet and get it up where that our customers wouldn't worry about going to turn on the faucet and nothing coming out of it. And they ponied up for that. There's very little blowback from that happened to us. They understood it. They kind of understood what they'd been going on through 2019. And now we've got our customers where they've got confidence in us. We're out getting grants. They can see different parts of our county being improved. They don't read about negativity in our local news. from Southern Water. Public Service Commission don't use us as a pun joke in training now. They praise us. And this is just not the right time. I guess more than anything, Commissioner, why I'm asking you. With everything that's going on with our county and everything and our customers, this is just not the right time to put another increase upon them. I understand the logistics about the depreciation. I understand that. And I understand that every customer should not have to worry about their system, their county system, or their water system not being able to be functional. But with so much going on, you know, we still got 150 families in our county displaced. We've got Jenny Wiley campground full. Jenny Wiley Lodge is still full. We've got kids that's living with grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins. I mean, it's just a real bad time. And for me to have to go look those people in the eye and say, I need some more money for your water bill, it's just not right. Not right now.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe you need more money?
Not right now, I don't.
Well, you keep saying right now,
understand
but I
the
don't know.
depreciation. You
Yeah.
asked me a question, let me answer.
Yeah.
Not right now. I think that with the depreciation the way it is, and it's been that way. I mean, there's not, you talk about Odom County, I still say that there's not a system in the state of Kentucky that don't have bad debt. Everybody has bad debt. But we're trying to address that. Now, since 2019, we've had positive cash flow. We've not missed one bond payment. Our escrow is still growing. So give us time to work on this. But I don't think that right now that you should implement any type of rate increase upon the people of our county and our system.
You keep saying right now.
Mhm.
Let me ask it this way. When in your experience was a good time to have raised rates? Because I've done this for 6.5 years, somewhere in this industry. I have never talked to a customer who agrees that this is the right time to increase rates. And I ask it from that perspective. I'm not a faceless person in Frankfurt. We're out front. There's nowhere to hide here, right? I get that I don't get to shop at the same grocery store as the all 4 million Kentucky electric and water and gas consumers, and I'm not in the same community necessarily as all of them. But it's not like we're hiding behind closed doors, right? So I've never, ever in my experience, even when I was representing consumers, ever had one say, this is a fair enough time for you to raise my rates. Like that just has always been the case. What is it that you're looking at as a board member? What sort of metrics? When does it get so bad on the utility side that you all feel like you need a rate increase? I get that you're saying it's not the right time. What I don't have an appreciation for is from your perspective, given that that's your testimony, what you think, what scenario or criteria has to exist for you to believe that it would be the right time?
Well, you said that the depreciation's been going on since this company, all right? So I guess my response to that would be that we have addressed I think that we have addressed close to $5 million in grants, and we've attacked it in that situation. We've worked on it that way. We was dealt a pretty strong hand when we had to borrow $1.2 million for meters, and we did it. and we've made it work with your all's help. And it's easy to go to somebody in my grocery store, it's easy to go to somebody in my gas station and explain it to them that this is something that had to be done. The mechanics of the old ones were never addressed from the previous administration. So it wasn't calibrated that we got a record, or you all got a record, showing that any of your audits or any of your inspections showed us that we had that was going on. So we had to end up biting the bullet and putting that in for our system in order to try to calculate where that we could get, where we would need to put some of these lines for water loss. And it's easy to tell somebody if something positive is going on, to tell them that they're going to have to come up with another $3. But at the same time, I'm out there every day. I volunteer all fall, and I see a lot of people. And I've seen a lot of people through the summer and the fall and the winter. But the thing that, the thing that gets me, and after looking at these people's eyes after our last flood, the mental state of them right now is very fragile. And I just don't think that, if you pile on something else, if you're asking them to take on something else right now, I just don't know how that would go over. And I guess what I'm saying is we've got a pretty good working relationship with our customers right now, but you push them a little bit farther, then it might defer.
So I'll go back though.
Okay.
Do you think that they're going to be any more
I don't think
happy
anybody.
to get a rate increase next year?
I don't think anybody, like you said, when you raise gas to $4 a gallon, was you happy? We wasn't. But at the same time, we've got positive cash flow. We're addressing problems. We're receiving grants. Our escrow is fine. We've went from when we took over at $10.2 million to $4.1 million. So, we've got a real good board. We've addressed a lot of problems, and we've got a real good board, and we work real good together. But don't put it upon our customers to have to pay more money. Let us try to figure out what we can do amongst us before you increase their rates again.
Well, so Mr. Prater was just telling me though that he expects next year your all's financial condition to get even worse. You heard that?
And I didn't hear that.
Well, that he expects costs to go up, which you all don't expect revenues to go up, do you?
Well, it just depends. If we our water loss has improved every year, and also if we get the new line in from Lackey to Wayland, then we address some of the major leaks in that system. So with that, we could possibly see some revenue go up. Now, to the point where you're talking about, I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm not trying to split hairs, but next year you all do not expect your financial position to get better next year, right? You expect. We've heard all the pipes and everything else that you all use, the cost of all those are going up, and you're having problems being able to pay your current employees the current rates and expecting.
We haven't had trouble paying our employees. We have,
You all haven't had turnover. That's
No,
in the
sir.
record that you all
well,
had.
I mean, every company has turnover.
Well, that's
But at the same time, if you told me at 2019, I'd said, hey, you're right. But since the first year, we even showed in 2019, we showed $11,000 profit, a net profit. And, we had all kinds of problems. We had to borrow money from the fiscal court and had to pay it back. But, you know, it's like when you go buy a car, if you go buy a car and you want that $60,000 car and you got $20,000 in your pocket or in your bank account, you got to figure out a way to make sure that you get that $60,000 car. So, I mean, and we've done that, but we have not had any problem paying our bills. We've had no problem paying our employees in the last 2 years.
Look. You talk about the meters.
Yes,
You
sir.
all were in a desperate situation with the meters,
We
right?
were.
You all struggled to find a way to pay for the meters, even though you knew you needed them, right?
We did.
Okay. They were $1.2 million.
Yes, sir.
In 2021, well, in the test year of this case, you all lost on a net income basis, not on a cash basis, but a net income basis, losing between $275,000 and $300,000 a year.
From the meters.
No, that in unrecovered rate, and you are short your revenue requirement in the test year between $275,000 and $300,000 in this case.
And what year was that?
The test year of this case, which is 2021.
And that was because of bad debt and.
Nope, it's just that your rates are not covering all of your expenses, including depreciation expense.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's going into. Well,
That's a quarter of that $1.2 million.
that is.
And
But-
so when you get the question saying, why are rates going up? You say, well, we're desperate. We're begging people to give us loans to just be able to put in good meters that work. Wouldn't you agree that had the utility recovered depreciation expense over the years like it would have, A, it would have been able to replace meters in a timely basis, and B, wouldn't necessarily have had to borrow money and the cost that comes with borrowing money to replace those meters?
Well, I would think that would be also, I think it's kind of a two-way street too. If we would have been knowledgeable enough when we took office in 2019 to been able to go to an audit report or go to an inspection report and look and see that those meters were not being checked and not been, had been over the 10 years, then we would have been able to come in to say, you know, we've got to address this. But, you know, we have, and I see what you're saying, if we had that money, we could not have the loan.
Or they would have been replaced when they broke, instead of years. Some of those meters were broke for years.
Why wasn't it done the audit, or why wasn't the inspector from the Division of Water or the PSC coming in and telling these people
Telling these people what?
that these meters were outdated or not being calibrated?
Well, so it's our fault that the
I
utility
didn't
didn't
say-
replace their
well,
meters?
Is it?
I asked the question, that's why I'm.
And I'm answering it with that. I mean.
But the utility
well,
didn't have the money to replace the meters, would you
They
agree?
did not, they didn't ask for it.
Well, but what I'm pointing out is depreciation expense
Right.
is not something that you necessarily have to ask for, it's a cost.
It
That's
is a
calculating the
cost.
revenue. Let me finish my question. It's a
Okay.
cost that can be calculated in determining the revenue requirement,
Right.
recovered by the utility to make reinvestments in their system as needed. The utility didn't have that for years, would you agree?
Yes.
And that's what caused we'll call it a crisis, if you, I think that's probably a fair word, having dealt with it in 2019. A crisis with the meters, that the utility had so many non-responding meters and had such concern with the ability of whether they were accurate, that the commission gave you all a fixed rate, because the reading on the meters weren't trustworthy. Is that fair?
To a degree, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think we had, when we first took over, we had 750 of those meters we was getting a 0 reading on. We had close to 250 meters we had to pull because of the illegal hookups.
Yeah.
So, you know, here's what I'm gonna say. If they'd had that revenue, would they needed the loan?
If they'd have had that revenue like they were supposed to, you probably wouldn't even you wouldn't be burdened
I
with being
probably
on the
wouldn't be
board,
sitting
right?
here talking
That's right.
to you.
I mean, the reality is if the utility had recovered their rates like they were at close to even, I'm not saying it has to be perfect,
I understand.
but close to what their actual costs were for years and years.
Right.
Had they not had too low of rates, they wouldn't have been in the operational position they were in 2017, 2018, 2019.
It's true.
And my question to you about asking when is the right time, right? There's never a good time. And my concern with just saying this is not the right time is, what metrics do you use to figure out when, in your opinion, when the right time is? Because under the current, let me characterize the question so that you can appreciate what I'm trying to get to. If it's when it's tough or it's hard to explain, right? I don't know if that time's ever going to come. It's just my personal experience. There's never a great time to raise rates. But if the expectation is that your costs are only going to go up and your revenues are not going to go up as fast as your costs are, if you're only going to get in a worse and worse financial position, what are you all going to use as a board where you sit down and go, okay, now it's at the point where we do have to increase rates? And don't you run a risk of waiting till it's too late, like the board had to in 2019, of putting the utility in a poor operational state before you come to terms with having to raise rates?
Well, I wouldn't say that we're in that same situation because of, I don't think, up until we came in, they had $700,000 in grants. We're about 5 million. We're trying to go as fast as we can to get these done and get as much money as we can grant-wise. I don't know if they attacked it that way, but we are. We might not, grants, you know how grants work. You said it to Jeff. They're working about 4 or 5 years, if you're lucky.
And this is the generational opportunity for grants, right?
Right.
So that's not really a long-term solution.
It's not,
Would you
but,
agree?
as they say, you gotta strike while the fire's hot. We're trying that. Also, I just tell you the way I looked at people. You say, when's the time right? There's not a good time for a raise. Nobody wants a raise. Unless you're working and you want a raise. Everybody wants a raise then. But, you look at these people's faces after 100-year-old flood. This is a flood that it's just not one that come last year, and it was this one hasn't happened in 100 years.
Let me ask you this way. If management comes to the board in March of next year and says, we expected at the end of the year that we're going to be losing money, not just on a net income basis, which we have been doing, but we expect that at the end of the year it'll be close to whether we lose money on a cash basis. At that point, would you agree that it's time to have a rate case?
Yeah, I would. But at the same time, give us a chance. We've been there for 3 years now. And like I said, first year we had come down here and had training, I sat and listened to a man make fun of our district for about 5 minutes. Just bombarded us. And now, 3 years later, we're sitting here and we're fighting not to have a raise.
Where in between? So let me ask it this way. So we know that you said if we're losing money on a cash basis, that you'd say you have to raise the rates at some point. You can't lose money. You can't borrow.
You can't
You've
borrow-
got to
you
agree,
can-
you can't borrow money to run and pay for operational expenses, right?
I understand that.
Yeah.
We had to do that in order to make payroll the
I-
first month or two.
Again, depreciation's a nice little cushion there so that you don't have to go and borrow money for operational expenses. Where between now, what you look like today financially, and there, what else are you all looking at as a board to figure out whether rates are adequate? You can't run, you're nonprofit, but you can't run you can't run a business, an entity that's losing money. That
No, we're not.
long-term results in poor service.
Well, that's
So
right. But
where
we're
in
not-
between
we're-
those?
We're not running a company that's losing money.
You are.
If you count your depreciation,
And
which
every
I
business,
understand it goes into your formula.
that's right.
But at the same time, you know, and I guess my question or my answer would be that we're not losing money to the point to where I would come and ask you, or I would have to look at my customers and ask them for more money in a rate increase. Because like, I don't see asking our customers right now, based upon just depreciation and bad debt, for another rate increase, that 4 to 5% is gonna take the 94 to 95% that I've gotta go and ask to give me more money because of that.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes, Your Honor.
any more questions on direct?
Do you feel that the current rate structure we have right now is sufficient to get us a few years to file a new case, a new RF case?
I do. I think that, you know, again, it's not so much the rate right now, as I think the mental state of our county and the mental state of our customers right now are just so fragile. They're going through so much, and with us still being able to have a profit at the end of the year, cash-wise, I feel like it would be improper for us to raise the rates of our customers right now.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Mr.
Staff
Reagan?
has no questions for this witness.
Mr. Regan?
No, I don't think I do. Thank you.
What's your hope for the next year? So, taking the grants aside,
Okay?
what have I not heard? I mean, I've heard today the anticipation that costs are gonna rise. Wages, salaries, everything that you all buy, costs are gonna rise. We've had
14%.
countless utilities come in, I think almost exclusively water districts, but water districts come in that have either we've approved loans for them to do investments, or they've come in and asked for certificates to be able to build stuff that they're getting grants for, whatever it may be. And in every one of them, they said, we came in, I'm making up numbers here, we came in and said, we've got a 3-phase project, we expect it to cost $2.2 million, we've got bids, we've got all these things. And they come in 4 months later and say, actually, we need to increase that because we thought we could buy pipe at X and it's now 20-30% higher. And so we're actually able to either only afford to do phase 1 and phase 2 with that money, or we had to go and find a way to get the additional money to cover it, right? So I think the question stands whether the $2.2 million grant that you all are seeking will even, who knows whether it'll cover the expense then, right? Pipe may cost twice as much then. We don't know. But we know that all of those are pressures on expenses. what do you know that you haven't shared with us yet today, or that Mr. Prater didn't get to share with us, that you have an expectation will guard against that or have the opposite effect, that will actually put you all in a better financial position the longer you go without a rate increase?
Well, that's hard to answer without numbers. I mean, the feeling, you're asking me for a feeling that I have, and it's hard to answer that without some kind of,
Or if you have numbers, you know,
I mean, well, you don't know, I mean, you said $2.2 million, it might go up, well, you know, in 2024, it might go back down. You know, yeah, we can't, I can't look into the future and say what certain projects that's, the feeling that I've got is that we're gonna stabilize a little bit better in our county. Far as, we're gonna have some displaced families coming back in, to some housing that will have customers, which will increase our customer base. We've had some job growth in our county in the last 2 years that has increased some of our customer base. So with that being said, you know, I'm looking for some stability. We're still, I mean, I don't know, I know everybody's seen the pictures, but until you've walked in that stuff and been through it, it's just, it's hard to, people, if I put it this way, people are not worried a lot about water bills right now. They're worried about trying to get a house back there in their families and stuff.
so is it your concern, well, let me ask, do you agree the utility needs more money?
No, we can always use more money. You wanna give us some?
Well, I don't want to give you anything. That's not the job. I'm saying, do you think that the utility needs more income to be in a strong enough position to be able to provide adequate, efficient, reasonable service? And the reason I ask that is because your position on the stand is that it's not the time for looking at customers to raise rates. But that raises the question: do you even feel like? I mean, do you just feel like your all's own consultant said you need, in order to cover all your costs, an 8% increase? That's a fact, right? He said that. That's in your all's application. Do you agree that you all need an increase?
No, the board voted we didn't.
Well, and what I'm asking for is not what your vote was, because what you said today is that your concern was the impact on customers.
It is.
That's different. I'm saying objectively, do you think that the utility needs more income?
Not right now.
So you don't think the utility needs more income, and you also are worried that if more income is derived from rates, the impact it'll have on customers. It's both, not just the second.
Depends on what you say by impact on customers. What are you saying that they explain that?
Oh, well, you said that customers can't take it right now, was your quote earlier. So I
don't think so.
Well,
And I'll stand by that. I just don't think our people right now are, I just don't think right now that they're mentally, and I just don't think.
Yeah, no, I that's a fine position to take, and
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you or taking any issue with that. What I'm trying to understand is the basis of your objection, right? And as I see it, there's three possibilities. Okay, either one, you don't think the utility needs more money. Either you don't think the utility needs more money and you don't think customers can take the increase, or you either agree they need more, agree the utility needs more money, or you don't know, or you're indifferent, you know, whatever. But it doesn't matter about the utility. You don't think that customers can take it. And so what I'm asking for, I know it's not the first one because you've already mentioned the customer specifically. So what I'm asking for is whether it's the basis of your objection is whether you don't think the utility needs more money and you don't think customers could take it, or it's exclusively based on or primarily based on the fact that you're concerned about the impact of a rate increase on customers.
I do. I agree with the last statement.
Okay.
It's gonna be an impact. Also, to add to that is, again, give us some time. Give the board some time. Let us look and see what we can do. You know, we kinda hit the ground running in February 2019. And actually, we was crawling. And now we're up where we can jog, but I don't think we're ready to sprint. But give us some time to attack this issue without it costing our customer another raise.
Well, and here's what I'm gonna ask, and I think there are gonna be some detailed questions by staff after we come back from this break. But it seems like operationally, you all have settled. It does not seem, this is just my reading of it does not seem that you all have a firm grasp of your financial situation. Though, as I was talking to Mr. Prater, those are two important working components, right? It's one thing to be stabilized on an operational basis, and my personal opinion is that's certainly the case, and has been the case for a year or two, right? Is how does that translate financially? Do you all have, Big Sandy has to do this formal construction work plan that they send to the Rural Utility Service in order to get loans to carry out the construction work plan? Do you all have a 1, 2, 5, 10-year capital plan, right? Or is it just pushing as hard as you can for grants for whatever you can do? And do you all have a plan of, I'll just say it this way. I'm not saying you should act like an investor-owned utility, but the reality is that investor-owned utilities do this as a business, right? So they can't say they aren't professionals on running a utility. But I can tell you that every single investor-owned utility that we regulate knows exactly when they're going to be walking in the door here seeking a rate case for the next 10 years. Because they have a 10-year plan for what their capital is going to look like, what their costs are going to look like, what they think the customers are going to be using in 10 years. And they know our rates are going to go down, things are going to get more efficient, we expect to invest all this money, we're going to need to increase our rates here, we're going to need to increase our rates here. They're planning financially based off of what they expect to need to provide operationally. And what I don't get from the record is that there is that coordination yet between the operational side and the financial side of the utility, right? Is
Well,
that the financial side is responding to what the needs are operationally, but the question stands, what is the expected, what do you all, let me say, I'll just make it this characterization, okay? It was thrown out that the expectation are there are going to be operational efficiencies that negate the need for the rate increase now. Two of those that were thrown out were the Meade Branch Tank and the Estill Bottom project, $1 million, 2 different grants. Whatever operational efficiencies were gained from those is already taken into account before your consultant determined what the revenue requirement increase was. Those operational efficiencies are not going to be new in addition to that 8% need. Those are already taken into account. And then I asked, what else do you all think is going to mitigate the need for a rate increase? And there's nothing specific, right? There's no, we expect to replace this booster, we expect to replace this pump station, we expect to replace this tank, that's going to reduce water loss by 2%, 5%, 10%. We expect to put zone meters in, and we expect to be able to determine at that point, and we have an expectation that the zone meters plus the service meters plus the service line replacement will reduce water loss by another 5%, which saves you on power, right? Because you have to pump less, and it saves you on chemicals. And the revenue requirement impact is X. We've got none of that, and that's what I'm trying to get a handle on, because I don't disagree with anything you said today about the impact to customers, but I can't. The other side of that equation is the cost to the utility and the cost it takes to provide that necessary service to customers. I can't see the black and white numbers that things are actually going to get better financially for the utility without a change.
Okay, I agree with that, the last statement you made.
Not all the others? No.
No.
Okay, all right.
But
I'll take one.
But at the same time, this is a hard thing, and I understand where you're coming from, and I'm gonna take a big gulp, you're right. But the thing I want to tell you this is, it was hard for us, and it's still hard for us to try to get to that, because we're still trying to figure out those, calculations that you want, because we're still trying to figure out, with our new meter system, we're trying to get our master meter system in. And, you can sit and take a map of Floyd County and pinpoint, but throw you a dot there and figure out probably something needs to be fixed. But, we're trying to do it in a sensible, logistic way that will benefit the company the best right now. And without that data to show us that and show our operators that, it's hard. So I want to say yes, that's probably an accurate statement, and I would agree with you on that. But at the same time, we're still probably a couple years away from getting that data to show us if we can get these projects finished that we have underway right now, and hopefully get some more. Try to, as you said, try to get why it was going good, and try to get some more money for those projects.
And I'll tell you, the basis of every one of my questions is I think the folks in Floyd County deserve as good or frankly better water than anywhere else in Kentucky, including Lexington, Louisville, and Northern Kentucky. And I think that you all may not have been well served prior to, let's say, over the last 20 or 30 years to that benefit. I hope we can continue to help with that goal. But
I'm passionate. When it comes to Floyd County, I'm passionate. And that's why I guess I don't make a lot of sense when it comes to your numbers and all your logistics and all the other stuff. But when it comes to people and seeing people, and been living there since 1961, I get passionate about it.
and I appreciate that. And I think I'll say it this way: we have very good staff. Kentucky Rural Water has very good staff. And I think that it has to be a combination of your passion for your community, but also taking the help and the recommendations from the professionals when you get them. And it doesn't have to be all one and ignoring the other, or all the other and ignoring one, right? It shouldn't just be you all set the rates based off how the board members feel, and it shouldn't be setting rates exclusively how some agency feels they ought to be or some consultant feels they ought to be. It's a balance. And that I just want you to appreciate as the basis for my questions is how's that balancing actually going to work?
Right.
And it's not just during rate cases or things like that we offer our staff for assistance, whether it's not necessarily legal assistance, but training, right, to board members, to management, and rate reviews. And at the end of the day, they're professionals for a reason because they do this day in and day out, right? And it's not, you all get the opportunity to focus on your utility, your one utility. We regulate 150 small rural water utilities across the state. We see things that look very, very similar across the utilities. And a situation that takes 5 years to get into, my experience is that it takes 15 years to get out. Usually about it's a lot easier to get into trouble. It takes about 3 times longer to get out of it. So I don't disagree that it's going to have to be a process on your all's part. And I'm glad to see that you all don't have an expectation that's going to be fixed overnight. So, Mr. Bailey, do you have any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll take a short recess. We'll just take a recess until 10:15. We'll take a 13-minute recess till 10:50. All right, we're back on the record in case number 2022-00099. Mr. Bailey, you had something you wanted to bring up?
Yes, Your Honor, I was requesting that Mr. Daniels be excused from this hearing unless he's needed.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor. Mr. Daniels is probably the only witness that staff would feel comfortable excusing, but we do feel comfortable excusing him.
That'll be fine. We'll excuse Mr. Daniels from the remainder of the hearing. All right, Mr. Bailey, you'd like to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor, I would call Ms. Colbert.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
Paula Burke, 625 Kentucky Route 1101, Drift, Kentucky.
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Burke, can you tell us your relationship with Southern Water?
I am the office manager there.
How long have you been employed at Southern?
6 years.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Frederick? Mr. Kurdoff?
I have some questions, Your Honor. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Burke, my name is Kirk Kruzoffer. I'm one of the assistant attorneys here on staff, and so I'm sure I know we've never met before. I've seen you on video, but not the first time I actually had the chance to talk to you. So I'll try to keep it simple and straightforward, and I'll try to avoid re-asking anything. You mentioned earlier in response to your counsel's question that you're the office manager. Could you just kind of explain, generally speaking, what that entails as office manager? What are your duties, responsibilities, et cetera?
I do accounts payable, accounts receivable, HR work. I do a lot of the reporting, the monthly reporting. I try to just keep the office organized as much as I can and try to just be there for the employees. They come to me. I do the 401k work, mostly just the deposits. I don't know, I wear several hats.
I'm sure you wear a lot. I'm sure it's not an easy job, so I don't envy your task. Let me ask you specifically, obviously one of the issues that we're here about is the surcharge account.
Mhm.
And it's my, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding from your previous responses that you're the person who's essentially in charge of maintaining that surcharge account. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
Could you just kind of explain for the commission what your jobs are, what your duties are specifically related to the surcharge account?
I am the one that does the reporting to find out what the collections were for, the specific period of time, for the month or what have you. And then I take, because that money is deposited into our general account, I take that money and transfer it over into the surcharge account if there is available funds in the general account to do that. Sometimes I have to wait a while in order to be able to do that. I just make sure that I do it, as timely as I can to get it transferred over. I have recently changed that in the office to where we're doing that daily now, transferring that money that's collected each day into the surcharge account.
All right, so you're making daily deposits now as opposed to?
We are as of this month, yes.
As of this month, okay. And just to clarify, previously it would be 1, 2, 3 times a month, just kind of depending on
Yes,
the month?
that's correct.
Would that be fair?
Mhm.
Okay. And is there anyone else at Southern besides you that handles the surcharge account, or is that your duty exclusively?
That's my duty mostly. I concur with with Mr. Reed. Mostly just, if I ever have a question or anything like that, or the CPA, but mostly I just do that on my own.
Okay. And could you describe, I guess, describe for the commission the process that you go through when determining exactly how much needs to be transferred from the general account into the surcharge?
Yes, there's a report on our billing software that you go to gather that information as, for for whatever period of time you ask it for the collections for that month or the month before or whatever, and then I gather that information, and then I know how much needs to be transferred because I know how much was collected.
Okay. And again, you're the sole person that makes the decision as to when the transfers
Yes.
actually occur,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay. Um, I guess let me ask this, since we've started a new procedure this month, if you just kind of take us like step by step, how you go about, what you do each day to try to figure out how much you need to transfer for that particular day.
You mean the way are doing it now?
Well, you're doing it now.
Well, to be honest, the girls that have the drawers, that collect the money, the clerks that collect the money, they have a report that they print out at the end of each day when they're doing their balancing, that tells them how much was collected that day for, whether they do it as one deposit or 3 or however many's been collecting that day. They gather that information from that report and make that deposit each day, just like we do money into the general account. That way we don't have to worry about it being a lump sum of money the way I've been doing it.
All right. So the employees make the deposit, or are you ultimately the one who makes the deposit?
Well, they get the deposit ready and we send it to the bank each day.
All right. And is this all done electronically, I assume?
No.
Or okay, so do you actually?
The
go to bank
collections
and-
is done from the report. They just, write it on the deposit slip and we send all that to the bank along with any other deposits.
Okay, so who's responsible for actually going to the bank and making the deposit?
We have one of the guys that's going that way already. He drops it off each day.
Is it one particular guy? Do you have a name?
His name is Matt Stewart.
Matt Stewart.
He
Okay.
lives past the bank and he drops it off each day.
Okay. And does anybody else besides Matt do that?
Well, if Matt's not there, we have somebody else that's delegated to do that. They have a key to the night deposit.
Okay. Let me go back and I
Can I just
appreciate.
ask for a second, why would you need a key to the night deposit in order to make the deposit each day?
They drop it off, I guess, after hours or when the bank's already closed, before if they're not taking deposits anymore for that day, they have to put it in the night deposit.
Right, but but they don't have
Because
a key to the bank's night deposit, right?
They do, because the bag is, you can't put it in the regular slot. They have to use a key to open it to put the bag in.
Okay, so the bank's box to put in the night deposit has a bigger door that has to have a key.
Yes, sir.
And so Matt has a key and the other person has a key.
Yes,
Okay, and what do you all make the deposit in a bank bag
yes, we do.
that's locked?
Locked, yes, sir.
Okay, so who's in charge of taking the information after putting the deposit together and putting it into the bag and locking the bag?
Well, each clerk does her own deposit from her drawer, and then they all put them both all together in that bag and lock it up.
Okay, so there are multiple deposits. There's a deposit for each and every drawer each day.
Yes,
How many drawers is that?
2. But there's another girl that collects payments, like mail payments, that doesn't require cash.
Okay,
She also sometimes has deposits.
so you all could have 3 deposit slips in a given day.
There's times when we do, yes.
Okay. All right, and when you all report to us what a daily deposit is going to be, which I don't know, we've gotten a report yet with the daily
We have
runs
not.
with the change, but when you all give us the daily reports, is it going to be the total deposits for that day, or is it going to be the individual drawer, each deposit slips report?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I don't know, whatever you need us to. I mean, there is a separate surcharge account deposit slip. So that could, we copy all those each day and keep them until I make sure that it shows that they are deposited. And so there will be a separate slip for that we could report on. So no, most likely it would be just the surcharge deposit amount, but on the general account form, it would have that deposit listed, like, it would have the amounts that are coming from that full total to add it up down at the bottom.
So when you make a deposit in the surcharge account, is it a single check that you're depositing into that surcharge account?
It's not, it's just an amount, basically, that the report shows.
No, I mean, when you actually put money into
Oh.
the surcharge account.
No, when I
When
do
you
a
make that
transfer,
deposit.
it's, you know, it's just over on the bank website, you know, just
Okay,
a
so
transfer.
you go online
Yes, I do.
each day and
Well,
move.
not right now. The each day is the girls doing it through what they've collected that day. When
Okay.
I do it on a monthly basis, I will do it, just go on and go, you know, and just transfer it from the general account, you know, without any paperwork or anything like that. Of course, I print it and keep it.
Okay, so once a month,
Mm-hmm.
you will do an electronic transfer from one account to the surcharge, from the
Or-
main account to the surcharge account?
Or sometimes 4 times. I mean, however much it takes, however much I have to do to get that total, in order to get that amount put in there. Because sometimes I don't have enough in the general account when it comes time to do it, to
Yeah.
transfer it all at once.
So I wish Mr. Daniels was still here. So you all are required to put money into this specific account, and you all try to do it on a singular day, a particular day each month. But there's times where your all's overall account does not have enough money to put into the
Correct.
surcharge
That's
account.
correct.
And so the additional are always going to be then technically after that date. You're not saying, oh, we don't think we're gonna have enough at the end of the month, so I'm gonna put a little throughout the month. It's always, the additionals, if they're smaller than the total amount, are gonna come after the day you intended to do the transfer, right? Because you get to the day, or just make up a day, you always do it on the 4th. You get to the 4th, there's not enough money to move over. You move over half of it. But by definition, the subsequent transfers are gonna have to be after that date.
That's
Is that
correct.
fair? Okay. All right, sorry.
Can I ask, just to make sure I understand, Your Honor, I apologize if I'm re-asking something that everybody else is on the same page. So, you were saying you deposit the surcharges collected daily into the general account, right?
Well, before we
Yeah.
started doing it the way we're doing it now, it automatically went in that way. The collections all went into the general account.
All right.
Now I've asked the girls to start gathering that information separately off of their sheet that they already have and putting it in the surcharge account on a daily basis. Before I just waited and done it tried to do it all at once, or
Right.
4 times a month, or however I could do it to get it put over there. Now we're doing it daily.
And do you find that to be more efficient to do it daily as opposed to doing it
Well, they
once
just
or
have to
twice a month?
specifically go and get that from the report and put it on the deposit slip daily. You know, does that make sense?
I think, okay, well, let me move on, I'll ask
Okay.
another
Okay,
question.
sure.
We'll come back to it. So, obviously, you've changed, let me back up. You recognize, or I assume, you're aware of the fact that when this commission established the surcharge account, that it requires Southern to report, you know, the amount that's billed in surcharges, the amount that's, you know, actually collected from customers in surcharges, and then the amounts that's actually deposited into the surcharge account. And would you agree that that didn't always happen? That the reporting was not always, didn't take place like that? If you're aware, if you don't know, then you don't know.
I'm not sure.
The reason I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure. I mean, I thought so. I mean, I try my
Okay.
best to make sure I do it that way.
The reason I ask is, what the commission, what we're getting every month from council is we're getting a copy of the bank statement for
Yes.
the surcharge account that basically tells us, here's how much was deposited into the account this month, and here's the ending balance.
Right.
But the information that's lacking And I think part of the reason we've provided this new form for you to start completing is so that we have, the information regarding how much was charged, how much was collected, and how much was actually deposited. So we have those particular numbers. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's just basically what we're trying to get
Yes.
at. Okay. Let me point to, I know has been going, I know the surcharge case has been open for a couple of years. But there are, from going back and reviewing earlier this year in 2022, there were a few months that I'd like to discuss with you as far as the reporting and the transfer activity.
Okay.
So, just for example, the bank statement from March of 2022 reflected that there was one deposit made on March the 3rd for $8,097.69, even though a later response we got from the data request indicated that about $26,922 was actually collected in surcharges.
Okay.
So basically, it's a deficit of about $18,000
Okay.
between what was collected and what was deposited
Okay.
into the account. So I guess my question for you, if you know, is, can you explain
I can't, other than just a mistake on my part. I just didn't do it in a timely manner, or didn't do all the deposits that month. Just human error, I guess.
All right. And then the next month, in April of 2022, there was a single deposit on April 13th for it was $12,897.42, even though, according to your later reporting, a little over $28,000 was collected. So again, there's about a deficit of about over $15,000 between what was collected and what was actually deposited in the account. And I assume that your answer would be the same as,
It is. It's a
Before.
human error, I guess. And that would explain why I have decided to do it differently now, just to keep from having to have that discrepancy and to keep up with it better that way.
okay. And then the last particular month I wanted to focus on was in May of 2022. There were 4 deposits made that month, and there was a total of $53,342.94 that was deposited in that account, which is obviously way above the average surcharge
correct.
that would be collected.
Mhm.
And in a typical month, you're looking at $26,000 to $28,000 roughly
Okay.
from my review. Does that sound about right?
Maybe, I can't really remember exactly, but maybe it could have been from, I don't know, a catch-up from the month before or from the other months. I really am not positive, to be honest.
Okay. And-
Once again, that's why I changed the way we do it, so we can keep up with it better.
And we appreciate that you're tackling the issue. So it looks like for that month, it was $26,579 that was collected. So, we have 2 months where there's, a lack of deposits, and then there's like a mega deposit made.
Correct.
I guess, maybe trying to make up for the previous months.
Correct.
All right. If I could refer you to, you had recently filed a response to a data request. You sponsored some answers to, it was staff's request number 9. And it was your answer number 7. I think you may have that document in front of you. And I'll read it to you, and if you need to refer to it, I can quote from it.
Where
But
do
if
I
you
need
want-
to-
If you want to look at it first, that's fine.
What do I need to, help me, Stephen?
Here's it on my screen.
Okay.
May approach.
You may.
My screen. Go to what numerical?
What's the numerical number, or the,
It was, it was your answer number 7 that you sponsored
oops,
in data request number 9.
Okay.
And the quote that I read in my notes was that you stated in your response that you attempted to transfer the surcharge proceeds from the general operating account into the surcharge bank account during the first week of the month, immediately after the month in which the funds were being transferred. And again, I don't mean to be beating a dead horse, but it would be fair to say that wasn't happening on a regular basis.
Correct.
Okay. Now, another answer that you gave in that same request is that you, Paula Burke, she does abide by a standard procedure as detailed in this answer, even though I understand there are no written procedures for how the surcharge account
Correct.
operates. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay, but you attempt to follow the standard
Correct.
procedure, it just doesn't always happen
Exactly.
successfully. Would you give any thought or consideration to reducing the procedures to writing so that everybody could be on the same page and know exactly how things are supposed to go? Would that be a possible?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. In that same data request, number 9, there was answer number 4 that was filed on October 14th. You,
There's
are
no
you-
number 9 on
Yeah,
there.
go ahead and find it. I'll-
You may.
There's no number 9 here, so we're.
Is it that same data request?
Yes.
I've only got question 8, so I don't know.
The answer. Number 4.
What was the date on that?
October 14th, 2022.
And are we in case 2021?
If it would help, I could read you the question that may jog your memory.
I'm sorry.
I said if it would help, I could just read you the question and see if that
Go
jogs
ahead.
your memory.
Sure, I'll be fine.
All right. You sponsored, in your response, you stated that there were discrepancies for June and August of 2022 due to the mistaken use of the wrong data from Southern Software. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, I remember that. There's actually 2 reports. And to be honest, I'm not positive the difference in the 2. They seem to give somewhat of the same information on the collections.
Okay.
I have been doing one report all along, and I was speaking to the billing software folks about that one day, and they had mentioned that maybe the best way to do it would be to do a different report that you can actually go in and tell it to give you, like just the charges or just the payments. So I switched and started doing that type of report.
I think specifically, I think what you said was that you were using numbers from the transaction rate
Rate
summary.
summary,
when you should have been using numbers from the transaction history report.
Exactly.
And so my question was, if you know the difference between those
I
two
really
things, could you
don't.
explain?
From what I can tell, the numbers don't quite coincide, and I don't know why that is. Just from going back and trying to make sure, see which one was the best one to use, I guess. I really couldn't tell what was causing one to be a little different than the other one in the specific amounts. And I really don't know why. I need to, I'm not sure.
Um, Let me ask you, there are I have just a few questions in regards to, there was a response that was filed, Southern District's October 25th response to commission staff's fourth request for information. It's item 4A, weather event cost. Does that ring a bell to you?
So can you indicate to her when the date that the questions were asked? Because that's how they have all their data.
The response was filed on October 25th.
Right, but when was
The date
what was
was
the,
asked on,
And this is in case number 202200099.
okay, so that would be September 16th. And the response was filed on October 25th.
Okay,
do you have that in front of you?
I think so.
Okay.
Again, if you know, what effect do incomplete mitigation items discussed as estimated remaining cost have on Southern District from a financial or operational perspective? If you know.
No, I don't know.
Okay, do you know who would be better people to answer that question?
So it's these FEMA questions, is that correct?
Yeah, the question is related to the weather.
To be honest, most of this stuff is compiled by Mr. Conley. He may know more about that than me.
Okay. And I assume, I'll ask this question too, is how will Southern District fund the cost given that the damage coverage is based on a reimbursement basis with the timing of the reimbursement being uncertain, if you know? And that, again, would that be an answer for a question from Mr. Conley?
I guess so. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Ms. Burke, Tina Frederick for staff. I have a follow-up question for you about your surcharge reporting. I do know, because the Southern District sought a CPC in to work with and have a contract with the software and hardware provider that you currently use. That you do pay for services as far as assistance to help you use that software, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now tell me how certain you are that what report you're using currently to do deposits into the surcharge is accurately capturing the actual amount of surcharge collections that Southern has done during a given time.
I mean, I feel confident that's correct. I mean, I don't know any reason not to, I guess.
Have you had conversations with the software provider? Because you said that there are two reports that you have used back and forth, and that the numbers are not always the same. So there's gonna be an exact number that is the right number that needs to be deposited every month. And it's gonna be that number times the number of customers that paid their bill, times the amount of the surcharge per customer, which is $5 and something. So there's gonna be a number that is the right number.
Correct.
And every other number is gonna be the wrong number.
True.
So how certain are you that what you are depositing every month is the right number?
I mean, I'm as certain as I can be that the software is reporting on the correct information.
Have you had conversations personally with the folks that help you with the software, with that company, and explained to them what you need?
I have.
Okay, and have you asked them what the difference in these two reports are, the transaction rate summary and the transaction history report?
No, I haven't had the opportunity to ask them, because like I said, that just is something that I just realized in the last little bit, that report may be the better report to do the transaction history.
So do both of those reports give you an amount of money that should be transferred into the surcharge account?
Yes.
They give you the surcharge collections,
They
both of
give
those
you
reports.
I go into the report and under the surcharge collections, and that's the report that I
But they
get.
don't return the same number.
From what I could gather the day that I looked at it to try to figure out what the difference was, there was a small discrepancy.
Okay. As a post-hearing data request, we are going to ask that you confer with your software company and confirm which report you should be using.
Sure.
We're gonna ask which report you're gonna use.
Sure,
Now, will you be the person that will be in charge of filling out that form that was attached as an appendix to the commission's recent order in the surcharge monitoring case?
I imagine.
Have you seen that form?
No.
Have you seen that order?
Not that I can recall, no.
Okay. Form is really pretty simple. It was designed by some folks in our Division of Financial Analysis, and it simply asks for each calendar month the amount of surcharge billings, collections, and then what was deposited into the account.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to go back to your explanation of how those deposits are made, and you indicated that each clerk at the utility deposited every day. What did you mean by that? Are they making actual deposits into an account?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, at the end of the day, they do the reports that tells them how much was collected, and I just had them to start going and collecting or gathering the information that says was collected that day for surcharges on each drawer and put that into the surcharge account for that day.
So you're accounting for it, you're making a record of it, or are you actually depositing, transferring that money into the surcharge account?
We're actually putting it in there from that day's
So
collections.
for for every business day, there should be a deposit into the account for every business day going forward from November 2022.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you so much. I just really was a little bit muddled in that, and all how that worked.
Understand.
And I needed to clear that up.
Sure.
Thank you.
One more
Sure.
question, ma'am. One thing I've noticed was, I know the main payment that seems to be coming out of the surcharge account is to the CoBank loan, which is roughly
That's correct,
2,400, give or take a few dollars. But it seems like it's never the exact same amount every month. Can you offer any explanation as to how why that is?
I can't, to be honest. I've noticed that myself. I really am not sure.
Okay, but you're just paying whatever it is they bill you
Exactly.
for that month.
That's
you
exactly
write a
right.
check for that full amount.
That's correct.
And you receive an actual statement from CoBank that says, please pay X amount by X date?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No further, Your Honor.
Commissioner Reed, anything?
I don't, thank you.
Thank you.
Who do you turn to if you have a question about that? Say, look, we got a loan, right, with CoBank. Most loans that I've seen have an amortization or an amortization schedule on it. Says this is what your payment's going to be, or has a term in it that says this is how we're going to calculate your
Sure.
monthly payment. Who do you turn to at Southern to say, hey, this is different every month? Is this in accordance with our loan covenants? Is this in accordance with our amortization schedule that we expect?
I would imagine I would go to Mr. Reed, our CPA. He kind of, on the back end of it, takes care of that part, I guess, and I'm the one that gets the statement and writes the checks.
Who at the utility is doing the financial planning for the utility?
I think that's, I guess the board and our CPA, I imagine, does most of that, I guess.
Well, I don't want to speak for the, you know, for your all CPA, you know, the CPA's jobs, and I'm not saying anything negative about accountants, but it's about telling you where your money went, making sure that you see what happened to your money, right? Putting it in the right place, where your expenses are, where your revenues are, make sure that things add up after the fact. They're not necessarily financial planners, right? They're not
True.
financial officers that are looking at, okay, what do we need our revenues to be? What do we expect
Sure.
our usage to be? Is that is that your understanding as well? So do you, is just that the reality though, that that's, for the most part, it's whether the board has the personal expertise in conjunction with the board's accountant?
I suppose so.
Mr. Bailey, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for
You're
being here
welcome.
with us today. All right, so we got through Mr. Prater, Mr. Daniels, now Ms. Burke. Judge, call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Reed?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeff Reed. My address is 31 Music Street, Prestonsburg, Kentucky, 41653.
Mr. Bailey, you may ask.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, how are you employed?
I'm employed with Michael R. Spears, CPA, PSC, and as an accountant.
And what is your relation to Southern Water District?
I prepare the financial statements each month based on the information I receive and present it to the board on a monthly meeting basis.
Are you the main point person for Southern Water at your job?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Before we move to staff counsel, did I characterize incorrectly the job of a CPA in the form of an accountant?
No, you didn't. You did okay.
Okay.
I mean,
All
we
right. So,
we
but
do after the fact. We
It's
don't-
after the fact, right? And
Yes,
it's
correct.
where the money went, where the revenues,
There.
where the revenues came in, where the costs went out. Is that fair enough?
That's fair enough, yes.
I dropped accounting twice before I finally decided to see it out there this semester. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss that class.
Yeah, you're okay.
Ms. Frederick?
Thank you, Your Honor. And with that being said, you may or may not have an answer to this question.
Okay.
But if you're not the correct person to answer this for me, maybe you can direct me to who can. It's about, I know that you did not prepare this alternative rate filing.
Right.
But the billing analysis that was prepared used a one rate schedule. Or no, the tariff on file uses a one rate schedule, but the billing analysis was broken down by meter sizes.
Okay.
Okay, are you aware if this was an intentional decision by Southern, to submit a billing analysis that was broken down by meter sizes, and is there a plan to change the tariff?
Not totally, but I do recall discussion during one of the meetings that,
Okay,
to determine how they wanted the new rate increase structured. You know,
okay,
by just one meter, or size, or, various meter sizes would obviously have different rates, so.
all right. Maybe probably should have asked this question of Mr. Prater, would he have been the correct
Probably, yes.
person? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. All right, well, we will move on, and hopefully my questions going forward will be better designed for you.
That's okay.
All right, and we are in the case record of case number 2022-00099. And I'm gonna be referring to a response that was filed on October the 25th. And it was in response to a request that was made on September the 16th. Commission staff's fourth request for information.
Okay,
Item 3A, there was an attachment that was filed, and it was labeled SWS 4 3A Line Aging Comparison to
okay,
GL.
okay. I recall
You got that pulled up?
that. Okay,
In that response, you indicated that the amount of old delinquent, receivables
Yeah.
was $2,106,825.64. Is
Correct.
that right?
Yep.
Okay. Despite me jumbling it up, I'm trying to read the number. Of that amount, of that little over $2 million, what amount of that number is uncollectible?
I would assume the majority of it, the reason I say that is that that balance is on customers that have either left the system back in early 2000 or whatever, that still is carried on the books. And I'm currently, gonna talk to the auditor, and we're gonna try to get, a breakdown of that, if we can get the reports from the software company, to determine what amount, that we determine along with the commission, what would be uncollectible, but
Can I ask a question here, Ms. Frederick? So we get $2 million, more than $2 million of bad debt expense, right?
yeah,
For a utility with let's call it max, $3.5 million annual revenues.
yeah.
So this has got to be collected over a number of years. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
like I said, that's back 20-some years.
Yeah, so you do, I gotta assume Southern's not your only client.
No.
You have anybody else that doesn't book bad debt, that keeps uncollectibles on the books for 20 years or 10 years or even
No,
5 years?
no,
Okay, so the net income, the negative net income from the company's own consultant showed about a negative net income or revenue requirement needed to increase rates about $275,000. Staff said the net income would be down about $300,000.
Okay,
That doesn't include bad debt expense. Is that right?
right, no, it shouldn't.
Or an uncollectible. That's not. There's no write-off, right?
Right, yeah.
So what happens to net income if you take any of that bad debt expense and write it off? Does it impact net income at all in that given year?
Yeah, there would be an expense, a bad debt expense written off.
Right.
And, whatever amount that was deemed necessary.
And that would negatively impact net income.
Correct.
So for all these years, maybe 5, 10, 20 years,
Yeah.
net income has been higher than it otherwise probably should have been had the utility appropriately written off bad debt expense in a
Yes.
given year.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Ms. Frederick.
Thank you. That pretty much cleared that up.
Okay.
I want to move on to something else now, and that is the arrangement that Southern has where they collect garbage fees for the county
Yes.
and then remit the garbage fee to the county.
Right.
Okay? Can you explain to me how Southern District can be certain that it has not used water revenues to pay Floyd County for garbage collection?
Well, every day, from analyzing the bank statements, when they do their collection, like Ms. Burke said on the surcharge, each day they print out the report that shows the daily collections for the garbage. And they make a separate deposit into a solid waste account for the collections, and then they remit that at the end of the month minus their collection fee, which was 3%.
Okay. Ms. Burke also testified that as far as the surcharge account goes, occasionally there's not enough money to when she was doing this the way she
Yeah.
was doing it, there wasn't enough money in the operating account to put into the surcharge account what she was supposed to do, what she was
Yeah.
supposed to put into it.
Yeah.
So how can you be certain that that's not the case with garbage collection?
Well, they actually make the deposit daily into
There's a
the
daily deposit?
solid waste account, yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I have a question for you about the long-term debt instrument that we discussed earlier that was taken
Yes.
out
Yeah.
to buy the 5 trucks in November of 2019.
Yeah,
Okay. I believe at the council table, you have got annual reports for the years 2017 through 2021.
yes.
And right now, I'd like to ask Ms. Bramblett to please bring up on the screen so we can see, that might help us. The long-term debt page 39 for the 2017 annual report. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, can you tell me if the debt instrument that is identified here as Citizens National Bank 11/17/17 issue
Yeah.
date
Yeah,
is the same promissory note that Mr. Prater testified about and that has been rewritten a couple of times?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay, so from when Southern originally took out that loan in 2017,
Okay.
was the intent always to have it payable over a 6-year period?
Not to my knowledge, no. I mean, I don't know what, their original intent was.
Okay, because the maturity date is listed as November the 17th,
Right.
2023.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Okay,
I think the amortization was, based on a 6-year payback, even though they just got the balloon payment for the 2 years, after the 2 years. But we have to have an amortization, obviously, to determine the interest portion and the principal. So the actual amortization is based on a 6-year payback, that's why that date got in there.
and the payments, the amortization schedule for this loan was always based on a 6-year period?
Yeah, well, with a balloon payment at the end of 2 years. What it is, you have to put the balloon payment in there to get it to calculate correctly.
Okay. And subject to check, would you agree that this same debt instrument has appeared on every annual report through 2021?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bramlett. You can take that down now. We appreciate it. Commissioner Regan, I have no further questions for this witness.
I do not, you do not have any? There's no further questions.
I just follow up on the last question. Do you know if the board, have you had a conversation with the board members at a board meeting about the amount of uncollectible expense?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay. What was the reaction?
Yes, well, yeah.
More than $2 million in uncollectibles booked
Right.
over, or bad debt expense?
Yeah.
Booked over, how many years do you think?
Probably 20 at least.
Yeah.
And,
So that has just served to make the net income look better any given year. I mean, that's just the
Yeah,
impact
I
of
mean, you
not
know.
acknowledging it and booking it as an actual bad debt expense. It
Right.
just made the net income look better than it actually was in that given year.
well, yeah, I mean, we wrote off some, I do recall over the
Okay.
years, but, yeah, it probably should have been more, I would assume.
You can't afford to do it in 1 year.
No, because that way your net income's gonna be,
I mean, you're gonna lose $2 million, you can't lose
Yeah,
$2 million
exactly.
in a year for a
Exactly.
utility that only brings in 3.1,
Exactly.
3.2.
yeah, we're gonna have to start proratably looking at it and trying to whittle, get it down.
What is a good time period to write off bad debt? I mean, to determine that something goes from uncollectible to bad debt, I mean,
If you've got a bill that hasn't been, say you haven't had a collection on it in a year or say somebody moves and they left the bill owing.
Yep.
At that point, it's gonna be, hard to collect it, obviously, so.
so how do you treat deposits then? So every customer, the utility is either supposed to have a deposit for a customer or have waived the deposit for a number of reasons, right? And if they leave and there's a deposit, but it's still just uncollectible and you
Right.
haven't turned it over, can you use the deposit to offset that amount?
Yes. And the
Okay.
deposit's usually just $60, if I recall, so, you're not gonna offset the whole amount, obviously.
It's about a month's worth of usage, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay. So, we have some utilities that, I mean, legitimately, they turn the water off and like 5 days later,
Oh, yeah.
book it. They go, oh, we'll never collect this.
Yeah.
We have some that sell it, always take a loss. You assume you're gonna have a 15, 20% discount.
Right.
They just use that to offset and then they write the rest of it off after a month or two after they've sold it. Do you know whether Southern has ever sold their
No, they have
uncollectibles
not
to a
my
collection
knowledge.
agency?
No, they haven't to my knowledge.
Okay. Do you know what actions the utility takes to collect uncollectibles?
Well, just with the meetings, they, obviously send disconnect notices and reminders, and, you know, once, I don't know what happens after the
Yeah.
reminder. I mean,
That's not been part of-
That's not part of my.
That's not been part of your conversation up to
No.
now? Okay. All right. Sir, did you have another question?
No, I answered, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for being here. Real quick, Mr. Bailey, do you have any redirect
No.
witness? Okay, thank you.
Thank
All right, Mr. Bailey, I'd like to call Mr. Conley.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Randy Conley. I live at 2545 Little Robinson Creek, Virgie, Kentucky, 41572.
Mr. Bailey?
Mr. Conley, what is your employment?
I'm currently employed by Utility Management Group as a manager at Southern Water.
And what does your job duties consist of at Southern Water?
At Southern Water, I usually manage the day-to-day, what the guys go and do. I go out and physically, put in meters, put in pump stations. I do electrical work. I do just whatever's called upon. I mean, I handle a lot of FEMA right now.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Frederick?
Uh,
Mr.
I have a
Greenhofer?
few questions, Your Honor. Right. Let me see. Mr. Conley, let me start, let me refer you to the surcharge monitoring case, which is 2020 121. And I've got a question for you about the master meters that were being dealt with. And there was a second annual progress report that was filed by Southern on April 8th of 2022. Is that, you
Yeah.
recall that document? Okay. At that time, as my understanding from reviewing your answers, no meters had been installed as of April when you filed that annual report. Is that accurate?
No, yes, that's accurate.
Okay. So since that was filed in April, have any meters been installed thus far?
No, sir.
Okay. Is there a plan for when that would begin, or what's the future of the meter installation?
I am wanting to, because I'll personally have to go out. I am the electrician also, so as soon as I get my, what would you say, your FEMA, they gotta come around and do their inside inspections and stuff. Once I get all of 4663, then I'll be free to start working on that. I've got several projects sitting, that I haven't been able to do because of the two FEMA, 4643 and 4663, so we don't have nobody on staff that electrically has the knowledge to do it.
Okay. So it's just basically been put on the back burner to put out the more
Yes, I
immediate
mean-
fires?
And then sometimes I don't have the, the help to go out, you have to have more than one, so it just depends on how it falls.
And again, I understand you can't give me any specific answers. Do you have like a general time frame as when you think it could realistically be accomplished?
I'm hoping I can get one in the next month to 2 months.
Okay.
Because, my FEMA stuff is starting to, we had a lot of problems with 4643, 4663 is going pretty smooth, but there was a lot of paperwork, and we had actually a PDMG on the 4643 that had the illness in her family. She had to turn it over to another one, and then it got,
So, Mr. Conley, I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you. 4643 is a highway?
no, DR 4643, it's a FEMA disaster. It's the one in December that was the storm.
Okay. So, and then PD, what-
PDMG is kind of like the project manager over your case. I've got two different PDMGs, one over 4643 and then one over 4663.
okay.
And they use so much numbers that they actually lose me in it too, because they've got project numbers, they've got damage inventory numbers, they've got, it's all numbers, so it gets me.
Okay. It's a lot easier when people just refer to the community or the road, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the only way I get by, so. All right, thank you, Mr. Greenhoff.
All right, so there are 10 meters that are planning to be installed, is that correct? And
Yes.
Are they all the same type of meters essentially?
Yes.
Okay,
And they all will have a telemetry unit to where I can read them and monitor them from the, from the office on my phone at any time.
And I realize not every installation, I assume, doesn't go exactly according to plan, but typically, how long would it take from beginning to end to install just a single meter?
I think that I can get it completely physically in and up in 1 to 2 days. Then there may be some tweaking and making sure you got the right signal, stuff like that, getting it to read in.
So if, I don't know, assume maybe not best case scenario, but a realistic case scenario, how long do you think it would take from beginning to end to get all 10 meters installed?
It'll take several months because of just the way, we're such a small district and they have so many leaks that, I'll have to have an excavator to dig the side up. I'll have to have the crew to help me. It'll take a while just because of, as many leaks and stuff as they do have.
Do you install a new box for every one of these?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so would that, kind of roughly within a year, is that realistic or?
That's realistic.
Okay,
As long as we don't have more FEMA and, stuff like that.
right. Let me refer to another issue in regards to the surcharge monitoring, specifically the Brush Creek tank. And I think there was a data request that was filed by the commission on April the 25th, and a response was filed by Southern on May the 17th. So I'm going to ask you some questions regarding to that. If you need to refer to the answers, I think you had sponsored.
If you can show
some
me
of
the
those
answers.
They're all right here. I don't know which one he's asking, That's the response.
I can't remember the exact responses or what, but I mean, they haven't changed. What's the questions?
Well, I guess, let's see, sorry, I lost my place. In your response, you had indicated that there was a leak detected in the tank and a repair was scheduled to be made during the last week of May of 2022. And I realize there's been some other intervening events, but my question is, has that repair been done yet?
Finally, yes. It just got completed, I think, around October the 10th, 12th, somewhere in that area. I had them come in. The day they showed up, we had a leak on the other side of the hill. The state actually broke our line, drained the tank. Scuba divers can't go in with a drained tank. So then, it went 2 or 3 different visits they came. And then finally on the last visit, they come in, they could actually complete the cleaning and everything. Then in the process of cleaning the tank, they, when they cleaned up all the debris off the floor, they, whole size of a quarter roughly, it was running 10, 12 inches wide. I got videos I can show you. Really scary because I didn't know what I was going to do at this point because when they was cleaning it, and then we had them stay in and just keep working on it and they patched every bit of it. But now it's a patch. It's not a permanent fix. But they did give me a warranty with the patch.
And if I recall, was the warranty roughly, was it 24 months? Does
I
that
think
sound about
so.
right?
And then they patched it once, and then this was actually the second round. They come back and done this second patch. So, I mean, they've been standing by their warranty, but we also, once cleaning it, we found leaks around the base and different things. So we had them come in and put patching in that too. So, but it still needs to be completely refurbished.
Okay. What was the estimate, roughly, what was the cost just to do the repair?
The first round, they give me the warranty and everything for $8,000. Then when I had to have them come in for the additional days, it ended up running up to around $30,000.
Yikes.
Yeah, but I had no choice. I mean, I was under FAR, and
Do what you had to do.
but
What's
we're gonna try to work payments or
What's a refurbishment cost?
a complete refurbishment. I've been taking estimates. They're supposed to send me a bid kind of, I took estimates from the board and I've tried to get 3 companies right now. I'm waiting for Frank's Restoration. The only ones I've got in right now is from Southern Corrosion, and it looks like it's gonna be around $100,000.
Do you have any tank restorations in 2021?
No.
So that's if you do it in 2023, which is, it's November, you do it in 2023, that's an extra $100,000 that isn't currently budgeted or included in rates.
Yes, and I've been trying to, I've been talking to the board because they do the tank schedule where you get all your tanks and you start doing a schedule and getting them cleaned like you're supposed to, and that's what trying to lean towards, and it'd be more cost effective for us too, cause you wouldn't have to have come up with that whole $100,000 all at one time either. But we've gotta get bids but they've got a lot of good tanks.
And just so I'm clear, that $200,000, that's just to refurbish it, not to replace it, right?
Yes,
How much, if you actually replace it, how much that?
it'd be like the Meek Branch project, close to probably $1 million, I'd say, 800,000 to $1 million.
And does Southern, do you have a plan for, I guess, where the money's gonna come from, whether you refurbish or replace it? How, where that money's gonna come from at this point?
No, I don't do none of the financial planning. I kind of tell them what's wrong, and then they go from there.
You say they, you just mean the board?
Board, yes.
When Mr. Prater testified earlier, I think you kind of threw you under the bus a little bit. Not threw, you know what I mean. But anyway, there were some questions that were asked about the material of the pipe. I think that the chairman had asked some questions. Are you aware of any section of Southern system that's made up of a type of pipe that is not a type of pipe normally used for water lines?
Yes,
Okay.
several different areas.
Several, do you know them off the top of your head approximately where they are?
Tinker Fork, I think there's one at Mead Branch, I think it's called Buckeye Branch, is like a class 160 pipe. There's just several areas.
And what type of pipe is in place?
Yeah, some of it's electrical conduit is what it appears to be to me. It's no water line I've ever seen. It's gray in color, looks nothing like water line in my opinion.
And do you have any idea how long it's been there?
It's like eggshell. I can grab it in my hand, squeeze it, and bust it.
Well, don't do that.
It happens quite often.
How many miles of it do you have?
I don't know if I could give an exact mile. I know we've got.
Oh, not exact mile, yeah, within 5, 10,
I mean,
20
I don't know
miles.
if I could even. It's not really miles. It's little short hollers, little short sections they've done that I guess they probably over the years added on, and never took grants and done it. Never a big project. Just little stuff that they've added is what it looks to me like. Little short hollers got 10, 20 homes on them or less. It's not really a lot of mileage.
And I guess the board's engineer or whoever wasn't paying attention to whatever the contractor was putting in, and it was probably a little cheaper than what got bid out,
And you know how it is
Yeah.
too. I mean, who knows if a contractor who knows if an engineer, there's a lot of this line that they've told me that in the past the county has put in. And there's been no engineer involved or,
Okay. Well, you get past the leak detection, the master meters. Do you have a good, and I'm gonna guess the answer is no, given the fact that you're past answering it, but when do you expect to get a good feel for what the system actually looks like? I mean, the difference between an electric system and a water system is that you can see almost the entirety of the electric system, right? You can see a broken insulator, you can see conductoring that's starting to fray, but you don't know necessarily the condition of pipe under the ground. Do you have a good feeling yet of what the system looks like, what it's made out of, where the leaks are, where
Yeah,
you're
no, we
under
got-
pressure or over pressure?
yeah, we're getting, I've got some places lines roughly 28 foot deep. We're lucky in the park, like on 979, the state is actually widening the road through in front of a school, so they're gonna replace a big section of that. I've got swamps that we've actually know there's leaks in, and we've tried to get an excavator to and bury the excavator, and then bury the one trying to get it out.
Yeah. So when you say the state's gonna replace, you mean they're gonna pay you all to replace it, right? But it's still gonna be, okay.
They're replacing it completely. They're hiring the contractor we signed to let them handle it completely. The only
Okay.
thing we've got a engineering firm, which they pay for, but they make sure they do it the way we want it.
And that's why I wanna make sure of. Do
Yes.
you all sign off on the specs, make sure it's the right diameter, right pressure, everything else?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you have any idea when this might take place as far as doing the actual repairs and replacing the lines?
That one's gonna probably take place next year. It's been on the books forever, next year to 2 years. But everything in this moves slow.
And would it take a year or two to complete everything?
Probably.
Again, just a guesstimate, I'm asking you.
Let me just ask, the road widening, is that part of a particular project?
They're
What's the-
widening in front
What's the
of,
road?
it's 979, Kentucky Route 979, it's Mud Creek's what they call it. It goes right in front of Stumbo School.
Okay.
And then we've also got, they contacted me here a little bit ago, right outside of Martin, they're building a new bus garage and the state's redoing the drainage. And he's gonna replace some 100-foot sections for us there. And he asked me if we could, and I was like, I'll take all the 100-foot sections you can give me.
As long as it's the right
Yes,
diameter, pressure.
they engineer it all. The state does
Yeah.
top notch.
Yeah, so speaking of the state, you said you had a damage the other, recently with the tank, the drain of the tank. Was that a mismark, or was it just an accident? How did, you said the state damaged part of line, had a leak?
It's a mismark, and, well, it's not really a mismark. They know it's there. There's a lot of it that's, not real deep, and it's on their right of way, and there's nothing you can do with them.
I just want, but do they ask first? I mean, do they ask you?
Oh,
all to
yes,
mark
they
for-
do.
okay.
They're really good working with us. We had to get a lot of, permits off of them, the crossroads. We've got to where we've got a good working relationship with them. They try not to, and they even ask us, if they have places where the road's breaking off and we've got lines in there, they let us know, we go stand with them. That way, if they do hit it, we can cut it off, but we also want to make sure that they don't fill it back in around with rock and
Yeah.
stuff that'll break it.
Do you all have much pipe on the low side of those areas of road that are breaking off?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
For some reason, they mislaid about this whole county because every bit of it's on the creek side. None of it's on the hillside. I don't know why.
And when they fix it, if it's theirs and it's on a hill, they'll put it on the right side, the state will?
The state will if they,
Yeah.
if they do, because they'll ask us and we'll have the engineer put it over there. Because like this one section we're doing on 979, it tickles us to death because half that's a swamp. We can bring it over and put it next to the road.
Go ahead, Mr. Kirk.
How much, as far as replacing the lines, what's the general, I'm sorry if you already said this, but what's the budget that you're looking at to get all this accomplished?
It would have to come from grants, I would say.
Yeah, but give it, it's in the millions, clearly, you all got millions of dollars. To replace the lines, to put them in the right place with not electrical conduit, for instance, right? Stuff that's approved for drinking water, just the distribution system, what's the cost that you're looking at?
I'd say I don't know how to put an estimate on that. It's millions,
More than 10
more than
million?
10 million.
More than 10 million with today's dollar.
Yeah, and, most of it's asbestos concrete, needs to be redone anyway.
Another question we had asked Mr. Prater about was in regards to the loss through water theft or the reporting process. Could you explain to the commission kind of what process there is in place for reporting water theft and what progress has been made in trying to
We have got,
minimize that?
we've got a thing on our Facebook page that gives them an email where they can anonymously report and stuff, but you do have people that come in continuously and report, and then we go out, we investigate, it's not an easy thing, you can't just accuse somebody of theft, you have to know. So we usually go out, we dig it up, first thing you do is you go to the base, you see if it's got an illegal meter in it or whatnot. And then, sometimes you have to strip the main line. The only way that you're gonna catch all the thefts is to relay most of the lines. Because, over the years, we found some that people's actually done away with the base. There's no base there, and just tie the line straight into their house and it's done. We actually had one guy here not too long ago that done just that, and then he was working, filling in his yard and broke a 10-inch main, and then we found his base, everything.
And what did you do when that occurred? Was there any prosecution of this fella?
We have prosecuted some. We didn't prosecute him because he knowed, he come in and agreed to, he paid for a new tap, he paid, I can't remember, you would have to ask Paul and them exactly what all he paid, but I have took him to court. I have, had 2 cases that I know of that I have been to court on them, which One of them, the guy didn't physically live there. We know he done it. It was in his mom's name, blah, blah, blah. But luckily, he ended up going to court, going to jail for a different reason, so I don't have to deal with him now. Another one is a young boy that's on drugs, and we've had several on the drug theft. I mean, we've had houses that are completely abandoned. They're covered with kudzu. They'll make a tunnel into the back of them, and they'll start using the bases. And luckily, people call and tell you.
So those prosecutions that you're referring to are things that have happened during your tenure as you've been assigned to Southern?
Yes.
Okay. So let's just say in the past 2 years, how many times have y'all prosecuted somebody for water theft?
I have prosecuted two,
2?
and neither one of them you could actually prove or.
What is the process that you follow when somebody comes into the office and reports water theft?
Usually, first thing we do is me and Logan, who's the second in command, the Southern boy. We go out and start looking. First thing we do is look at the base. Then we kind of look at the house and try to figure. And then we would guesstimate where we would tap a line. We may strip it back with the excavator. Most of the times they report it. Usually they're doing it in the base. There's very few that you find that's not. There's some that's done away with bases, but you would need an old employee to come and show you where the base was originally. Then you can generally find it.
Let me ask you something. I'm not a contractor, I'm not an engineer, but just educate me if you could here. During the Estill Bottom line relocation and replacement project, and during the Wayland to Lackey replacement, during those kinds of projects, do you uncover theft during doing that kind of work or not? Is that not something that you would detect?
Sometimes you do.
Okay. And so-
Luckily, Estill Bottom is a pretty, it's a good neighborhood right there where we relayed and them people wasn't. We come to there's areas we know that we're going to find.
Okay. So if you discover it on your own, what would be the process that on your own during during a construction project, what would you do at that point?
Disconnect them.
All right. Other than disconnecting for failure to pay for service, what other collection procedures does Southern have now?
Really, I mean, they do not, as far as to my knowledge, sell off the debts, or they don't turn it over to a billing collecting agency. Pretty much, you just wait, and then the what would you call it? The customers do their, they're gonna come back and want water. And then, they play the game where they'll put it in their daughter's name, they put it in the husband's name. We ask for a power bill. I try to force them to, if you're going to put that in their name, they're going to change their power. They're going to have to, I try to push it because the ones that's doing it, but you can only do so much, and they still beat you sometimes they don't.
I understand that, and I just have like 2 more questions, and we're gonna go all the way back to the beginning on master meters again. I know I keep harping on this, but I've been assigned to this particular case since the beginning, so I wanna try to make sure I've got it right. Now, when y'all turned in your second annual progress report back in April, you indicated that you had ordered that one master meter and the telemetry unit to go with it, but that it hadn't arrived at that point. It had not, you hadn't received shipment, and you hadn't paid for it at that time. So has that been paid for now?
I do not know if it's been paid for, but I know it has arrived.
Okay, all right. Now, have any additional master meters or the telemetry units been ordered?
Not ordered, nor paid for yet.
Okay. When is the plan to order the next one?
As soon as I get that first one in, I don't want them setting to where they'll get damaged. Is my biggest thing. I want to, and they probably have them already at Wascon because they know that I'm going to be ordering them.
Yeah.
But I don't try to get them stacked back there because we're small.
Okay, I understand that. I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Commissioner Regan.
Okay,
But Kirk does.
2 quick ones. Who is the county? It's the Floyd County Attorney, is that right?
Huh?
Who's the county attorney in your district?
What is
If
his
you know.
name? Keith Bartley. I noticed I couldn't come to me.
Is he, I know some county attorneys are more receptive to prosecuting cases like this than others. Have you had any problems with?
The 2 that I've took to him have had no problem with him prosecuting.
Good, okay.
Most of them end up coming in and doing some kind of a payment, or some of them that there's no way you're going to get them. There's one area that I've actually the boy has run his whole family off. We've took 4 bases out. They don't even live around him no more. I mean, he's just, I mean, we dig them up and then, there's not much they can do after that. If I can stop, it's my biggest thing, because most of the time you don't recount your money, but you can stop it from happening in the future.
All right, nothing further, thank you.
Commissioner Regan, anything? Nope. Yeah, and that last thing, I just wanna make sure I'm clear, that was gonna be one of my questions, is that it's not about getting your money back for what they took, it's about keeping them from going forward, is that correct?
Well, I mean, you would like to have your money back, but most of the time you're not gonna get it.
Yep. I wanna go back to the question about the, let's call it inadequate infrastructure, but not in the sense that the demands are greater than what was originally built for, in the sense that it was wrong when it was put in to begin with.
Yes.
Give me the roundabout, how much of your all's operational issues are caused by those situations that were wrong when they started? 10%, half of it, just
50 to 60%, and then the rest of it's age.
so you've got half of it is they put electrical conduit in, or they put the wrong pipe in, or they didn't engineer it when they did it, and the other half is just wear and tear, like you were talking about with
And
the
then,
tank
like you
earlier.
say, people, like if they're gonna fill a bottom, and you got a line that's 3 foot deep in the ground, then they come in and put 28 foot of dirt on top of it. Nobody went out and said, "Oh, you can't fill this. You have to pay for a line. We got to move the line before you can do it." Stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah.
It's in real. I mean, it's there's some really deep. I mean, the deepest I've ever seen.
Do you all have a project profile in for any of the sections that have the wrong pipe
Yes.
installed to begin with?
It's is it 1.8 million or 2.18 million? So it's roughly about 2.2 million.
That I was going to ask. That's the Melvin.
It's got
area.
Melvin in it. It's got Mead Branch. I know it's got Tinker Fork in it. I know it's got Biggs Branch. It's got a lot of those in it.
So will you have? Let's just take this idea that you're afraid some of it's electrical conduit, given the color, right?
Yes, I can't prove it's electrical,
that-
but it looks like, I'm an electrician. It looks like conduit to me.
Yeah. So would that 2.2 million cover all of that you're aware of?
Roughly.
Yeah.
On just that part, the one's got the wrong kind of pipe. Yes.
Get the wrong kind of pipe. That's. I mean that. I
It
don't
looks
know how
like
you
I call the other DWV is it's like what you would use for drain and vent piping. And you've seen the real thin, like they run the vents out the top of your house and
Yep.
stuff. It's that kind of pipe. Some of it is, and it'll just bust. I mean, and some of it was laid. I mean, I've actually seen a tree fall and break the water line because it ain't that deep.
Yeah. You have any that? Is any of this placed on appropriate base? I mean, is there appropriate aggregate laid underneath it, or is it just dropped right in the?
Drop in the ground. But there's no sand base, no nothing. That's one thing we're watching the Wayland to Garrett project. They're bedding it bedding it in gravel below, around, above.
Yeah.
They've got a really good inspector. We've actually been over ourselves looking at to make sure.
What engineering firm are you all using now?
EDC.
All right. And were you all using them before UMG came in, or is that something that's new since you all showed up?
It's new since I guess we showed up.
Okay.
I've worked with them in the past. I mean, on
Yep.
numerous jobs.
Okay.
My biggest thing is I like an engineer that I can get to. I don't want one that's 2 hours away because he just don't answer the phone.
Yep. Yep. Well, and you got to worry about whether they can find appropriate local inspectors that are showing up, and
They've got a top-notch inspector over there.
that's the biggest one, right? And you can do all the engineering you want, but what actually goes in the ground is what matters. Okay. Mr. Bailey, do you have any redirect for Mr. Conley? Okay. Is there any reason that Mr. Conley can't be excused?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Conley. Mr. Bailey, do you anticipate recalling any of your witnesses?
No.
Ms. Frederick, Fruithofer, do you all anticipate recalling any of the witnesses?
I'd like to recall Mr. Prayer if you could.
That'd be fine. Mr. Prater, do you mind? Take the stand just for a minute. You're still under oath. Ms. Frederick?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, and I apologize for not asking this earlier, so thank you for bearing with me. The application that Southern filed in this alternative rate filing case, used a billing analysis that was broken down by meter size.
Yes.
But the tariff that Southern has on file is not, it's for all meter sizes. So was that, use of that billing analysis intentional on Southern's part?
It was. The board and I have talked at length about, we believe the long-term need for Southern is to charge, we have one billing rate. All meters, regardless of the size, are billed by one volumetric rate. And I think that's very odd because in the electric business, you bill by capacity. And we do believe there is a need to change our billing structure at some point in the future with a cost of service study. The plan is somewhere down the road, we would bill a residential house meter at a different tariffed rate than we would a 2-inch meter to a commercial customer and a 4-inch meter. When the ARF was filed, Mr. Valines asked, and so we have that information is in the system. It can be pulled. It was a consideration, but we decided we would wait to another rate hearing at a later time and get a cost of service study and try to make that adjustment at a later time.
Okay, so let me recap and you tell me if I'm wrong. So Southern has discussed, and there is a plan or a thought to convert to a different rate design based on meter size.
Yes.
But that is something that you would do after doing a cost of service study in a future case, as yet to be filed at an unknown time.
Yes, that's generally the ideal that we've discussed.
Okay, one more question. Has the board had any discussions or considered ever selling their accounts receivable to collection agencies?
No, we have never discussed that as an option. We have discussed that, we have discussed maybe doing a quarterly look at our bad debt. And I'm looking at the bad debt, and I'm concerned about the ratio of bad debt to total revenue that we take in.
Okay. Has the board discussed any other way to approach or reduce the level of bad debt that you currently carry?
Well, we have, and it's my understanding that it's the practice now is if a new customer comes in to request service, that the office personnel are asking for an ID, so they get their ID, they get their information. I think Mr. Conley referred to, if there's suspected that this person might be trying to get it hooked up after it was disconnected, in somebody else's name, they'll ask for a utility bill with a name on it. We collect a deposit on all new accounts. We have discussed a little bit, that might have been referred to here earlier, that the current deposit is not truly 2/12 of the annual bill. It's my understanding from what I've read in the PSC regulations, a utility can charge up to 2/12 of an annual bill as a deposit. So there has been the consideration of, do we need to increase our deposit to help mitigate the bad debt?
Okay, thank you for your answer, and I have no further questions. Thank you.
Nope.
Thank you very much for being here with us today, Mr. Prater. Do you have any redirect? No. Okay. All right, is there anything else that we need to take up before we adjourn the hearing, Ms. Frederick?
I don't believe so, other than maybe to just draw everybody's attention to the post-hearing procedural schedule that has already been issued.
Yep. And as always, Mr. Bailey, we ask that you file things, if you're unable to file everything by the date that it's due, that you file what you do have, and then seek timely requests for additional time. Do not wait till the very last minute to ask for additional time. Everybody ought to know whether they're gonna be able to get it done close to time, and if you're afraid you're not going to do, please request additional time or leave to file with additional time with some space between the request and the actual due date so that we can appropriately address it. All right, with nothing else, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.